Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the most innovative horror experiences the FNAF community has ever created. Instead of relying on the same familiar scares, these games introduced bold new ideas that completely changed the way horror is presented. Some of these feel unlike anything I've ever played before, so let's dive into them. Five Nights at Freddy's has a very distinct formula that makes all of its fan games instantly recognizable. Very rarely do I see a FNAF fan game and not be able to say it's a FNAF fan game, and I think you'd agree. If I showed you a video clip of a FNAF fan game you've never seen, I'm pretty confident that you'd be able to tell me it's a FNAF fan game, and you would most likely be 100% right. Sometimes, however, a FNAF fan game will be so well made to the point that at first glance you'd think it's just a normal horror game. Obviously, if you were to begin playing it, you'd very quickly notice it's a fan game, but my point is that in the gaming landscape, unless you're specifically looking for a FNAF fan game to play, even just seeing that formula or look of one would probably turn somebody away. And the game I'll be covering today is a perfect example of the opposite of that. By looking at the gameplay of this game, there's a good chance that, considering you haven't seen it before, you might not be able to tell it's a FNAF fan game at all. That's also considering you don't know who Circus Baby is. I'll get more into her when the time comes, but whatever. I really needed a hook to start this video with. Maybe this one isn't my strongest, but it's what I wrote, so it's what we're going with. The game we'll be diving into today is the web of cogs and oil. Before we begin, in the last video I asked you what your favorite non-DLC specimen from Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion was and why. My favorite comment was this one by Joker of Spades. They chose Specimen 1 because it's pretty funny how it has killed a person, and I agree. I know that they cause heart attacks to kill, but I think the funny part is how that's only ever worked on one person, one time, ever. Also, I've never said this publicly, but I have a Twitter and an Instagram account that you can follow if you're interested. I'm not super active on either right now, but I figure it'd be the normal YouTuber thing to do, so those are in the link in the description. YouTube also keeps sending me emails telling me to set up channel memberships. I feel like it's a bit too early in this channel's lifespan to set something like that up, but let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. I would just put stuff on there for members like early access to videos, allowing you guys to have a say in what game I make a video on next, blah blah blah, membership stuff. Also, let me know if you'd prefer I did it through YouTube memberships or Patreon, but of course, that doesn't need to happen if you all don't want it to. Sorry, that intro was a bit longer than my normal ones, but it's over now, so let's hop into the web of cogs and oil. The web of cogs and oil is both similar to Five Nights at Freddy's and different from it at the same time. In Five Nights at Freddy's, you start on a menu screen, select new game, and night 1 begins. The web of cogs and oil does it a bit differently. Rather than having the game split up into nights, it's split up into challenges. The web of cogs and oil has 4 monsters, and each monster has its own challenge that you can select from the menu, and each plays differently. I actually really like this non-linearity because if I were to get stuck on one monster and get super frustrated, I could always take a break from that one and work on another. Now, of course, to be fair, I don't feel like you'll be getting frustrated with any of these monsters because none of their challenges I felt were very difficult. In fact, I beat all but one of them on the first try. What can I say? Pretty amazing. So, yeah, worship me. Moving along, I'm going to be talking about the monsters from left to right as they appear on the menu. So let's begin by talking about the corpse. The corpse is by far the easiest to defeat. When you load in, you'll immediately see a timer that begins counting down, and this is the same for all monsters. All you have to do is survive until that timer runs out. I actually really like this mechanic because I feel it causes much more anxiety and stress because you can really see how close you are to completing the challenge, and when you feel like you're on the brink of losing, seeing that you only have 10 seconds left to go can really make your asshole invert even deeper into your body. The corpse has a very basic mechanic. In this challenge, you're locked in a freezer with it. You are at the back of the freezer and the corpse is standing in the doorway blocking your only exit. All he does is walk forward, but he'll only do so when the lights on the ceiling begin to dim. I think this is really creepy. Not scary, but creepy. I'd like to imagine that he only moves while the lights are dim in hopes that you don't see him moving. Imagining it like that makes the atmosphere all the more terrifying. So, how do you keep the lights from going dim, you may be asking? Well, if you'd shut up and let me do my job here, I'd tell you, so pipe down, bud. In front of you, facing the corpse, there is a pole coming out of the ground with a crank attached to it. When you spin the crank, it'll recharge the lights on the ceiling, and if the corpse had already inched closer to you, as the lights become brighter, he'll move away from you and back to the entrance of the freezer. But if that were all, it'd be far too easy. Behind you, there is a thermostat that is constantly going down, making the freezer colder. You'll have to make sure the freezer's temperature doesn't drop too low, because if it gets too cold, you'll shiver so hard that it causes your back to snap in half and you'll die. However, you have to make sure you don't raise the temperature of the freezer too high either. The higher the temperature of the freezer, the faster your lights will dim, leaving you vulnerable to the corpse. And that's it. Do that until the timer runs out and you'll have beaten the corpse. Before we move on to the next monster, I'd like to mention that there is a remaster of this game that is currently being worked on. It's on hiatus right now, but I think it'd be fun to offer some suggestions to the dev that I think would be a cool addition. I love the way each monster plays as it is, but I think it'd be a cool idea if there was sort of a new game plus type feature, wherein after you beat a monster, you can challenge them again and the difficulty will increase, granting you a second star for that monster. But I feel that the way you'd increase the difficulty should definitely be through mechanics rather than just saying, "Hey, thermostat, go down quick, corpse move faster and throw cheeks." For the corpse, I think a really interesting way to increase his difficulty would be to make it so that once he inches closer to you, he won't move back once you recharge the lights. This will make the whole challenge feel much more intense, as you won't be able to spend nearly as long on the thermostat as you typically could. Again, this is purely a new game plus type of idea, as I think the way each monster plays normally is pretty perfectly balanced. This would just be for the sociopaths who want more of a challenge. The second monster is the Dxtr. The Dxtr is a little toy clown. In his challenge, you're sitting in a bedroom with him in front of you. All you have as a tool of defense is a flashlight. However, the battery to this flashlight drains pretty quickly, so having it on for too long will very easily fuck you over. The Dxtr begins in front of you, slumped over. You'll have to listen closely for his footsteps. Once you hear him begin to move, you'll have to find which side of the room he's running towards and flash your light at him. Once you do, he'll ragdoll on the ground in a very painful looking way. If at any point he goes off of either side of your screen, it's game over. Fun fact, this is the only monster I lost to, if you were curious. However, I don't blame myself. Watch this clip. Hey, that was not my fault. That was not my fault. We flashed him. We flashed him. What is this bullshit? That, my friends, is what I call Class A bullshit. Anyways, that's not all this little fucker does. If all you had to do was listen, it'd be incredibly easy. This guy will also move without making any noise at all. When he does, he won't move towards the sides of your screen like he does when he makes noise. Instead, he'll slowly inch towards you. This forces you to turn your flashlight on to check his location all the time to make sure he's not creeping up on you. But of course, because your flashlight drains so quickly, doing so isn't exactly something you'll want to do. On top of this, there are also two jack-in-the-boxes on both sides of the room. Occasionally, they will pop open and create footstep sounds that are basically identical to the Dxtr's, and will trick you into turning your light on. Get it? Trick, like in Dxtr? Like it's his name? Dxtr? Trick? Like that's why they call him the Trick. Repeat this process until the timer runs out and you're all good. I think a fun way to increase the Dxtr's difficulty would be to require your flashlight to be on for a period of time before you could turn it off. I say this because by the time I finished the challenge, my flashlight battery was basically half full. All you need to do is very quickly flash it off and on. This gives you enough time to check and make sure he's still there without wasting almost any battery at all. By requiring your flashlight to stay on for even a full second or two before being allowed to be turned back off, you would force the player to have a much lower battery life by the time the challenge is over, making you really think about when you should be using it throughout the challenge. The third monster is the Demon. This one is a doozy. In this challenge, you'll find yourself in a basement with 4 candles and a pentagram on the wall. All you have to do is manage 3 things. 1. Make sure the demon's candles don't go out. The demon has 3 of the 4 candles. 2. Make sure the servant's candle doesn't go out either. The servant has the remaining 1 candle. And 3. Make sure the pentagram on the wall doesn't get too bright. Doing all of these things is really easy. It's managing them all at the same time that can get stressful. Let's start with the pentagram. Throughout the night, it will slowly begin to get brighter and brighter. All you have to do is click hold on it to slowly dim it back down. It's pretty much the music box from FNAF 2. The demon's candles will occasionally go out at random. When one does, all you have to do is click on it to relight it. Super simple. It's the servant's candle that makes this challenge hard. The servant's candle goes out far more frequently than the demon's does, and when his candle does go out, instead of killing you like the demon does, he instead will go over to the demon's candles and blow them out. And he does this very fast. It feels like most of the time that the moment that little asshole's candle goes out, he spawns on the demon's candles and blows those bitches out. It's honestly the pentagram, however, that will really make your penis retract inside your body. Even though dealing with it is super easy, because of how frequently you'll be dealing with the servant, you'll often find yourself not having enough time to tend to it, meaning that as the challenge comes closer to a close, the pentagram is going to be bright as shit, and I promise you that when it is, you'll be holding your breath. I think an interesting way to make this challenge more difficult would be to have the servant blow out 2 candles at a time rather than just 1. This only works because when all of the demon's candles are snuffed, he doesn't kill you immediately. I also think that if all the demon's candles are out and the servant's candles are out at the same time, you should die instantly. This would just add another epic layer of stress to a challenge that already fondled me non-consensually. The final monster is the machine. This one is Circus Baby from FNAF. I don't totally understand why the dev chose to use a FNAF character in this game, considering the other 3 monsters were all original, but I digress. If the other 3 challenges didn't make your butthole pucker enough, I promise you that this one will. In this challenge, you're in a very large industrial building. In the room you're in, you'll find a door with a valve keeping it closed, a window in front of you, and a maintenance panel. This challenge switches up the formula in a really small but very interesting way. In this challenge, you're against the clock. Rather than surviving, you never want that timer to reach 0, because if you do, I bet you could take a pretty good guess as to what happens to you. So how do you escape? Well, throughout the building there are several locked doors. You'll have to use the maintenance panel to unlock each of them before leaving the room you're in and escaping. Upon opening the maintenance panel, you'll see all 5 doors marked red and a D-pad on the side of the screen. You'll have to wait until one of the arrows on the D-pad glows green and then press that corresponding arrow on your keyboard. Do this 5 times and the door will turn green, signifying that it has been unlocked, which means doing this 25 times is all you have to do. However, these arrows don't glow immediately. I'd say there's a good 3 seconds between each arrow lighting up, and since you're in a time crunch where every second counts, 3 seconds will feel like a lifetime. You might be wondering where Baby is. Well, you better not keep your panel up for too long because she will quickly, and I mean very fucking quickly, inch closer and closer towards your window. Just looking at her will make her slowly move away. But once she reaches a certain point, no matter how long you look at her, she won't move back. If she gets too close, she'll break the window and kill you. This adds such a high level of stress it isn't even funny. You might think, well, if the arrows take a while to glow and you need to spend time watching Baby, that sounds super simple. But you also need to keep in mind how fast she moves. Having that panel up for 1 second will allow her to move 2 stages towards your window sometimes, and it'll take a solid 3 to 4 seconds to make her completely go away. Do you see the problem here? It is so incredibly stressful, but hey, once you unlock all 5 doors, all you need to do is leave. But all the things are done. Oh, you're fucking kidding. You're fucking kidding. I lied. After doing all that and realizing how little time you have left on the clock, now you need to slowly crank the valve on the door enough times to get it to unlock. And unlike the maintenance panel, the door is not on the same screen as the window, so you'll have to painstakingly look back and forth from the door to Baby. Again, 1 second is enough to make her launch light speed at that goddamn window, so having to look away, do a task, and then look back will feel like a fucking calendar year. But once you get that door open, you're home free. I honestly can't think of a super great way to make this challenge any harder in a meaningful way. Even though I beat it on the first try, it was still easily the most stressful and challenging. I'm pretty sure I only finished with 2 seconds remaining, but if I had to think of something to add more challenge, I'd say each door you unlock in the maintenance panel should have a different way of unlocking it. The first door could be the arrow keys, but maybe the second door you have to click one of 9 glowing buttons instead, and then another one could maybe be a number on your keyboard, and then each other door would have their own simple task to do, and you could have each door's task randomized so that you couldn't prepare for what you'll have to see in a playthrough. I think you should definitely leave the final door section the same though. I think it's so cool how that's thrown at you last minute, and I love it. But that was the web of cogs and oil. Overall, I think this game is fantastic. It's only a 20 to 30 minute playthrough, so if you have the time, I definitely recommend you check it out. You can watch my full playthrough on my second channel, Dxtr Black. I think letting the player choose the order of the monsters they want to fight adds so much to the game that I don't think enough people think about. Imagine you had to complete them in a set order. I'm sure most people did them from left to right, but imagine you didn't even have the choice. I know it seems small, but I feel like if we didn't have the option, we'd definitely notice. Although what you need to do in each night is incredibly easy, they're still balanced in such a perfect way that by the final 30 seconds, they'll all have you stressing out and sweating more than when you walk up the stairs at a below reasonable pace. I know you guys are out of shape. Go hop on the treadmill for 15 to 30 minutes a day. I promise you'll notice a difference in how you feel. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Sometimes, while digging through GameJolt for a FNAF game to play, I find a game that feels like it's inspired by FNAF rather than being a fan game. And it's usually these games that get me super interested in them, their stories, characters, and gameplay loops. By the way, don't sort the FNAF section of GameJolt by newest. You will find some of the weirdest, most god-awful, foul, slapped-together games of all time. Before we start, at the end of the last video, I asked you all what your favorite Five Nights at Wario's 1 character was and why. My favorite answer was this one from Platinum Comet. Not only did they share the same favorite character I had, but they also provided a really good explanation as to why. If you'd like a chance to get your comment at the beginning of a video, stick around to the end when I ask another question. Anyways, a few days ago, I found a FNAF game that blew me out of the water, which is really a good thing because I'm very scared of bodies of water. This game is Playtime with Percy, with a gameplay loop so unique and consistently interesting, along with animatic cutscenes, amazing 2D art, and a final sequence that might be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I knew I had to talk about it. So sit back, grab a snack, or don't, I'm not your dad, I can't tell you what to do, and get ready to dive into the world of Playtime with Percy. Upon loading up the game and starting a new game, we're greeted with something really refreshing for this genre. Rather than just showing the night screen and hopping in and having a phone call relay all information that we need, we're instead shown a very well-drawn cutscene. While it's more a visual novel and not an animation, it's still super nice nonetheless. Our boss calls us in the middle of the night and asks us for a favor. Even though we were laid off from working at Percy's Playhouse, the location where this game takes place, our boss asks if we'd be willing to do some work for the week as he plans to shut down and have the building demolished on Friday. He needs us to watch over the building and do some extra tasks like fixing up the animatronics since he plans on selling them because they're still worth a decent amount of money. So I have a question already. If we got laid off and no longer work for this guy, why the hell did we answer the phone? I used to work at a Subway until I quit. Even if right now I got a call from my boss from said Subway, there's no chance in hell I would answer it. Maybe I'm just a dick, I don't know. We agree to help our boss for $250. That's it. The whole week. Monday through Friday, $250. Our character, Nick, was happy to accept that. Either this game takes place in 1920 or Nick is the poorest human being on the planet Earth. Unlike most FNAF games, the way this game's gameplay loop works is actually really interesting and a lot different. Each night you do a normal office section, but then afterwards you do another survival minigame that changes with each night. So let's start with Monday. On Monday is where we obviously learn the basics of how the gameplay works. Instead of having to survive until an arbitrary time, you have to do a large task. Once it's done, the night is over. Meaning nights can be finished in 3 minutes or take an hour, depending on how terrible you are at micromanagement. which, by the way, this game is not for people who are easily overwhelmed. Holy shit, the amount of things you have to memorize and keep track of and react to is batshit insane. However, this game does a really good job of easing you into every new threat it throws at you. I highly recommend you play with tutorials on your first playthrough, as it helped me out a lot to understand what I needed to do. If I didn't have these tutorials on, never in my life would I have figured out how to deal with some of these animatronics. Before I talk about the animatronics that you see on Monday, let's talk about the task that you have to complete every night. You are given a Tamagotchi-like toy called Pal Percy. On this toy, there are 3 possible minigames that you can play. Each time you complete a minigame, you will be given a specific amount of points. Once you collect enough points, the night will end. As the nights go on, in addition to all the new threats that are added, you will also have to gain an additional amount of points. Just a little something to make this game feel even more stressful. Also, if at any point you go without completing a minigame for too long, you will die. The first of the 3 games is a feeding game. There are 3 possible lanes that food can be dropped down, and you have to move your character, which is Percy, under the food to collect them. After collecting 3 or 4 pieces depending on what the game told you to grab, you will gain your points. The second minigame is a watering minigame. You have to shake a bottle of water up and down to get the water to fill a bowl. Once it's full, you'll get your points. And the third minigame is the play minigame, my favorite of the 3. Percy will move into one of 3 lanes. You will have to move a ball into the same lane and throw it to Percy. After doing this around 5 times, you collect your points. Now, you're unable, most of the time, to do the same minigame multiple times in a row, forcing you to become efficient at all of them. I'm not totally sure how the algorithm for deciding when you can replay a minigame you've already played works, but typically from what I noticed, it seems that once you play a game, it disables. Then, when you complete the other 2 games, it will be enabled again. But keep in mind, that's how I think it works, and I could be and probably am wrong. The other tool you get is a camera system. Pretty basic stuff, you can see where the animatronics are. FNAF, let's talk about the animatronics. The 2 animatronics on this night are Charlie Cat and Mother Moose. They both work the same way with a small difference. Both characters will move around the cameras until they enter one of your 2 vents. If you look to the left and rights of your office, you'll be able to see these vents. Now's a good time to mention that I was playing this game with the additional cues setting enabled. I'm not sure what changes if that setting is off, so if your gameplay has some inaccuracies with mine, that setting I turned on is probably why. I also had the colorblind setting on because I am, and there's a lot of color related segments in this game. It really usually just adds symbols on top of colors, but whatever. Where was I? Oh yeah, Charlie Cat and Mother Moose will come into your vents and poke their heads out to look at you. When they do, depending on which one of them it is, you will either have to raise your Pal Percy or your camera. If Charlie peeks into your office, you need to drop whatever tool you have up and look at him. If you don't, you die. If Mother Moose peeks in at you, you have to make sure that you are holding up either your Pal Percy or your camera. It doesn't matter which one, and if you don't, you die. Pretty simple, but really gets you used to the buttons you need to memorize, since one of the only things I had a consistent problem with in this game was remembering what buttons did what. It's not nearly as horrifying as FNAF Ultimate Custom Night keybinds, but it still confused me personally a lot. After gathering all the points you need, you move on to the post-Monday minigame. In this minigame, your only threat is Charlie Cat. The task you have to complete in this night is selling all of the animatronics in an online auction. Doing so is really easy. Each animatronic has a price that our boss wants us to sell it for. If a buyer isn't offering the exact price we want for it, you click decline and enter a random number the game generates. Every time you decline, the offer will be raised by $100. Once the number is correct, you click accept and move on to the next animatronic. While you're doing this, however, occasionally you will hear Charlie approaching. When you do, all you have to do is hide under your desk until he walks away, then come back up and continue selling. Something this game does that I really like is treat these post-night minigames as a boss battle. Once you sell half the animatronics, Charlie enters his enraged state, just like when you bring a boss's health down halfway in a game like Terraria. When Charlie Cat is enraged, he will come to find you more frequently, you will have less time to react to him, and he will stay in your room longer. On top of that, you will begin getting pop-ups on your computer that you will have to close out of before you can continue auctioning the animatronics. Once selling all of them off, Monday is over. On Tuesday, we're thrown back into the office with a new threat being introduced, Farmer Felix. Sporadically throughout the night, he will begin walking outside of the large window in your office. A newly appeared board is displayed in the top left corner of your screen with 4 colors on it. When Felix walks past, his eyes will glow one of these 4 colors, and you will have to select which color his eyes are on the board before he gets to the other side of your window. Overall, this is super simple to deal with, but on top of everything else you will soon be dealing with, he could very easily become something you forget about. Moving on to Tuesday's post-night minigame, we find ourselves in front of an arcade machine. The task we have to complete here is beating the high score of 6,000 points. You control a small rocket that shoots lasers. Occasionally, UFOs will drop from the top of the screen and we'll have to shoot them. Green UFOs don't do anything special, but red UFOs will shoot lasers at us too. We start with 3 lives, and if at any point our life drops to 0, we die. There are also 3 power-ups that have a chance of dropping. One makes us shoot faster, another gives us a shield, and the final gives us 1 life. The boss of this night is Mother Moose. You will have to listen incredibly closely for 2 distinct sound cues to play. When you hear them, you can pause the game and turn around. Then flash your camera to scare Mother Moose away. If you don't do this in time, you die. That sounds pretty easy, but the arcade game makes more noise than a bombing, so hearing Mother Moose can actually be pretty difficult at times. Once you reach the halfway point, she becomes enraged. While enraged, she will attack more frequently and take 2 camera flashes instead of 1, meaning you have to react way faster. In addition, asteroids and yellow UFOs are added to the arcade game. Asteroids are really large. They take way more shots to kill than a UFO, but move very slowly. Yellow UFOs can move horizontally in addition to moving vertically. They don't shoot lasers though, so they're not really an issue. Once you reach 6,000 points, it's on to Wednesday. Wednesday introduces a new tool and a new animatronic. The new tool is your door. Clicking it will lock it. This is important because of the new threat, Percy Poodle, the main antagonist of this game. Percy will make his way down your hall throughout the night. When he gets to your door, he will start pounding on it and you'll have to lock the door until he gives up. In addition, a very small version of Percy will quickly and randomly open your door and peek in. When he does, just close the door quickly and he'll leave. Pretty simple and easy to understand mechanics, but with how difficult the other characters are starting to get, this on top of all of it is where this game starts to get really stressful. Now let's talk about the Wednesday post-night minigame. In this minigame, your task is repairing the power. You have to do this for each room in the building through a panel. Once you choose a room, you will have to play one of a few selection of minigames. All of them are pretty simple, and I'm sure you'll be able to figure out how they play just by looking at the screen. Each room requires you to complete 2 of these minigames before the power to them comes back online. The boss of this night is Rowan Rat, a character that will be introduced next night. Throughout the night, you will hear a distinct sound cue. When you do, you have to turn around and flash your flashlight at him. Behind you, there are 4 large holes in the wall, and there's no telling which one he'll pop out of. Once you flash him, he quickly leaves and you're free to continue. Once you restore power to 3 of the 6 rooms, Rowan becomes enraged. While enraged, he will attack more frequently, you will have less time to flash him, and he will require you to flash him twice. After flashing him the first time, he will crawl back into his hole and appear out of another one. Out of all the post-night minigames, this one is definitely my favorite. The flow of how it plays, mixed with it probably being the least stressful, is really refreshing with how fast my heart was typically beating throughout the game. After getting the power to all the rooms back online, it's on to Thursday. Before Thursday night, however, when walking out of the building, Nick finds a tape, and you get the choice of whether or not you want to pick it up. As far as I'm aware, picking it up doesn't change the gameplay, and there's not multiple endings to this game. If you pick up the tape, you get some lore and foreshadowing. If you don't, you just move on. I picked up the tape because I'm a Chad gamer. Putting in the tape, it doesn't seem to play anything, so Nick goes to bed. But as soon as he leaves, the tape begins to play. We're told that the Pal Percy toy is being recalled. We're told it poses significant threats to children, but it's not elaborated on. People are told to return the toy to whichever store they bought it from, but since Nick went to bed and never saw this, he will still continue to use his pal Percy during the nights. On Thursday night, we're introduced to the previously mentioned Rowan Rat, and we get a new tool for us to stress over. This night was by far the most confusing for me, since I didn't understand what the tutorial was telling me, but let me explain. In your cameras, you will find that you have a new subsection. It's a motion detector for cameras 1 through 4, which are the cameras for each corner of the establishment. You will need to check these motion detectors throughout the night to see if Rowan Rat has moved. If he moves to a specific camera, which you can tell because the camera in the motion sensor section will turn red, you will have to go to the actual corresponding camera and use one of your shocks on Rowan to reset him. In addition to this, if that wasn't enough to make you want to die from anxiety, that small Percy that opens your door will now also occasionally spawn in one of your cameras. When he does, you'll have to find him and navigate to the camera he's on and stare at him until he goes away. If you don't do this in time, he will disable the camera system, stopping you from being able to shock Rowan, which will obviously lead to you dying. Now for the part that should have been obvious that I didn't understand. The tutorial states that you need to watch out for an alert icon on the E UI. When you press E in game, this opens up your camera. When you see that alert, that's how you know that you need to go find the mini Percy on your cameras. I thought this meant that the alert would appear on my camera. That it does not. Instead, it appears right above the little E button in the corner of your screen. Again, I'm really dumb for not figuring this out immediately, but this is hands down the most stressful mechanic the game has introduced so far. And in mixture with everything else you have to deal with and the constant overwhelming noise that you'll be hearing, it gets really fucking anxiety inducing. Don't believe me about the noise? This is what the night sounds like throughout its entirety. Yeah, it's pretty ass. But after completing your task, we can move on to the Thursday post-night minigame. In this minigame, your task is fixing Farmer Felix. After opening up his head, you're greeted with 4 small sub-minigames to complete. Each is pretty simple, you can do them in any order, but I did them from top to bottom. The first one is the gear game. You just have to match up each of 4 colored gears to the small brackets. Do this 3 times and the game is finished. The second minigame sucks really hard. Mainly because I'm stupid and didn't understand it right away. You're given 2 boards, each with the beginning and end of a sentence. You have to swap through different options until you have a complete sentence that makes sense. After doing that a few times, the game is finished. I really hated this one since it made no sense to me and took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out. You can watch my full playthrough on my second channel, Dxtr Black, by the way. Before talking about the other 2 minigames, the boss of this night surprisingly isn't Farmer Felix. Instead, it's 2 small Percy poodles. While you're working on Felix, occasionally you hear a sound cue. When you do, you'll have to back up and find one or both of the poodles in the room and click on them to make them go away. Once you complete 2 of the 4 sub-minigames, the poodles become enraged. While enraged, they will appear more frequently and require you to click them twice rather than just once. Not too bad, honestly. The third minigame consists of spinning a crank on the bottom of the screen to fill this white bar. If you wind the crank too much, Felix will overheat. I didn't let this happen, so I don't know what happens if you do. I'd have to imagine you either die or you have to wait a while to be able to continue. When you're not cranking, the white bar will slowly decrease. Once the bar is full, the game finishes. The final minigame is just Simon Says. Beat a few levels, and it's finished. And with that, we're done with the post night and can move on to Friday night. Friday night adds nothing new to the gameplay loop, just increases the difficulty of every character we've seen thus far. After completing your tasks, we can move on to the final post-night minigame. Friday's post-night minigame is us fixing up Percy. We open up his stomach and play 3 small minigames. The first is just matching these colored knobs to the colors of their corresponding wires. Do this 3 times and we move on to the next. The second game requires us to flip 8 switches. Every few seconds, any number of them can unflip, and we'll have to flip them again. Do this until the bar fills up and we move on to the next. The final game requires us to watch 3 squares. The moment they turn green, we have to quickly click on them. Do this a few times, and we can finally get to Percy's battery. I have no idea why there's so many security measures to get to this point, and why they're all so simple a toddler could perform them. It seems pretty counterintuitive. But before anything else happens, Percy's battery begins to smoke. We call our boss and tell him what's happening. Our boss says we either need to replace his battery or find a substitute battery. Not knowing what to do, Nick puts the pal Percy inside of Percy in place of his battery, and it works. Hooray! And with that, the credits roll. In all honesty, this game is super unique and enjoyable. I really like how each night feels different from every other, and how... Wait, what the fuck? Oh yeah, that's right, baby. Final boss fight time. The pal Percy took over Percy's body and spread wires throughout the building. We run and hide in a storage closet. We find an early version of a pal Percy, and luckily for us, it's hooked up to the power. Just like in previous nights, we have to play 3 minigames to fill up the bar. When we fill up the bar, we will be given a charge. We're told that after getting 5 charges, we'll beat pal. Since this is an early version, the 3 minigames are different from the ones we've gotten used to. Let's quickly go over the 3 new ones. The first game requires us to match up 3 rows of shapes. Pretty easy, but trust me, with how stressful this night gets, even something as simple as this task can become a nightmare. The second game requires us to move Percy through a maze. This one is my favorite as it was always the least stressful for me to complete. The third game makes me want to get bucked by a fucking horse, however. This game requires you to catch a number of fish. This game is only stressful because of how long it takes. When you press space, your line will slowly drop to the bottom of the screen and then slowly come all the way back up. I hate this game so much. Along with that, all of the antagonists are different on this night, so throw all the knowledge you've memorized thus far out the fucking window. As the night goes on, more characters will be added to the night, but rather than explain exactly when each character is introduced in order, I'll just pretend like they're all active right out of the gate, like they would be at the end of the night, and explain them one by one. It makes most sense to talk about the pal Percy that we created first. In the closet, there are these 2 monitors. Occasionally, these monitors will tell you to find me. This is pal Percy giving you direct orders. When you see this message, you have to open up your camera and find which room Percy is in. When you do, you will see him showing you a toy. You will then have to go to one of the other cameras to find whichever specific toy he showed. Once you find it and click on it, his attack is over. This alone is stressful enough, but we are just getting started. Next, let's talk about this stupid fucking little Percy. He has 2 different attacks. Let's go over his most simple one first. In the closet, you can see these 2 rolling carts. At any time, you can drag them out. If the little Percy appears, you have to use the cart that's on whatever side he's on and slam it into him, which literally kills it, so I guess there's just multiple of these fucks. His second attack thankfully has a cue. You'll be able to tell he's attacking because your vision will turn to horseshit. When it does, you have to find him on the cameras and stare at him. If you don't, he will disable your ability to move the rolling carts. I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what this next enemy is, but occasionally you will see and hear banging on either side of the closet. When you do, you have to hold the rolling cart in front of said wall until the banging stops. We're not done yet. Don't worry, there's still way more to keep track of. By the way, did I tell you that there's a time limit this time? Yeah. If you don't complete the minigames on the PAL fast enough, the PAL itself will fucking kill you. This game will not give my nuts a second to breathe, just constant quaking for those poor little guys.
Trust me, when you fire this game up, your little fucking nuts are gonna start quaking, buddy. Your little nuts are gonna be quaking.
But that's still not enough for this game, no. Let's make it even more stressful. These little tiny pals the game calls roaches will climb out of the hole in the ceiling and will sometimes show up in your vision. When they do, you have to drag them quickly to the bottom of your screen to throw them away. If you don't, you fucking die. Do you think we're done? Yeah? Well, you're fucking wrong. Not yet. The pal Percy that we substituted for Percy's battery will sometimes crawl out of him and go to one of the corner rooms. Thank God he gives a sound cue for when he does this. When he does, you'll have to open your camera and find which room he's in and shock him. This night is so fucking loud that half of the time I missed his sound cue. I died more to this guy than anyone else on this night. Still not done yet, there's even more. At some points in the night, Percy will charge full speed at your door. When he does, you have to hold the door closed until he stops banging on it. And finally, that's it. After getting all 5 charges, we finally beat the game. Psych, fucking idiot. Pal is really mad, and you're forced to get one last charge, while even more mechanics are thrown at you on top of what you already have to deal with. Now, if you look at those screens again in the closet, sometimes Percy's stupid face will appear. When it does, all you have to do is click on it. Don't forget, this is on top of every other mechanic I've just explained, as well as you still having to do those minigames, and that stupid fish one that takes 12 years to complete. Ready for another goddamn mechanic? I sure am. Again, our genius battery solution will occasionally come into the closet and take up about 80% of our screen. When he does, we have to play a quick minigame with him. He shows 3 cups and puts a ball under one of them. The cups shuffle around, very fucking slowly, and we have to pick the cup the ball is under, and then he'll go away. Again, this is on top of everything else we have to deal with. And once you get this final charge, do you think the game's over? Nope. Instead, the game says, fuck you. Survive for 60 more seconds as we increase the difficulties on the animatronics by about 136,000%. Lamau, sick idiot. But after those 60 seconds, it's over. And that's really it this time. I promise. This night took up, I'm not joking, about 50% of my playtime in this game. Holy shit, it's so fucking hard. I actually almost gave up, but thankfully, I got over the major salt I was throwing and beat it. If you want to watch me get pretty salty at this section, again, you can see my full playthrough on Dxtr Black. After finishing, pal Percy comes to the door and tells us that we can be his best friend forever. Nick says, and then pal gets all pissy and says he's gonna kill us. But before he can, a wrecking ball slams through the wall, which knocks pal out of Percy's body. With pal no longer having a body to control, he's pretty useless and lies on the floor like a sad sack of lard. Our boss calls us over as the building gets demolished and the game finally comes to a close. I have to say that this game is probably the best FNAF fan game I've seen in recent years. I'm pretty sure that now you can understand why I say it feels more FNAF inspired than a FNAF game. Because this game is so much more than just that. This game tells a great and captivating story, it has amazing 2D art, and a great and pretty large team behind it. It's so clear that an enormous amount of thought and care went into this game, and I appreciate it so much. Even though I think this game gets way too difficult way too quickly at the end, I'm honestly glad that it chose such a drastic approach. It's so different compared to what we usually get, and I love that the final fight is an entirely new gameplay loop. It's so creative, unique, and innovative, and I can't give enough praise to the devs. As of right now, I'm actually going to put this game just over Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese's as my current favorite FNAF fan game of all time. If you have any suggestions of FNAF fan games I may like more, definitely let me know. You can either put it in the comments, or you can go to the link in the description, follow me on Twitter, and tell me there. Before I go, I think most people would agree with me when I say the Five Nights at Freddy's formula can get stale really fast. And with the ungodly amount of FNAF fan games out there, it's only making the genre feel more bloated and full of bad acts. However, sometimes a fan game appears from the poop and pee infested FNAF category on Game Jolt and really opens my eyes and shows me something super creative that I've never seen before. Enter Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese, a game made by the Radiance team. Yes, the same team that brought us the amazing Treasure Island remakes. For this video, note I will be talking about the reboot, as that's the one I played. Before we start, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who watched my Garden of Bam Bam video. I just started this channel, and 3 days after that video was released, it already passed 100 views, so thanks for that. Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese begins with us reading a note that we will be covering somebody named Sue's night shifts for the week because she's having some family issues. I'm not sure how taking shifts works for all jobs, but I feel like in most cases you can only cover someone's shift if you worked the same shift they do. And from the way the phone guy character talks to us, it sure seems like we're not from the night shift originally like Sue is. Maybe I'm wrong and this point was stupid, and if that's the case then please ignore that. Night 1 begins and we're greeted with one of the coolest office designs I've ever seen. In front of us we have a desk with a lamp on it, some pins, a newspaper, a toy car, and a large monitor. Typically in FNAF games and fan games, the characters can be found immediately on the cameras. A lot of the time characters will spawn on some sort of show stage like in the originals, however, this game chooses to do something completely different, and I love it. Behind our desk, we see what appears to be pictures of all the characters hanging on the wall, but no, those are not pictures. Those are the actual characters standing right in front of us. We know this because as the characters begin to move, we are no longer able to see them in front of us. When I first played through this game and I couldn't see anyone on the cameras, I was really confused. But then Chucky disappeared from what I thought was a picture frame. It terrified me, and I think this is one of the most creative things I've ever seen a FNAF fan game do. Night 1 isn't too difficult, only having Chucky being active. He'll move around the cameras until he reaches the only door to your office, which is behind you. Before I show you this door, I just want to say how fucking cool this is. Not only do we get the comfort of knowing which characters are active and knowing which ones we have to worry about right now because of the stage in front of us. Now, the game is actively forcing us to turn our backs to these characters, which we know are quite literally feet away from us. Before Chucky gets to the door behind you, I said he moves around your cameras. Unlike Five Nights at Freddy's, where the animatronics show up on the cameras and can easily be found, and typically don't really seem to know the cameras are there, the animatronics in Five Nights at Chucky's know that the cameras are on and that you are watching them. Because of this, you'll see a lot of the characters often crouch down and duck behind things, almost like they're hiding and hoping you don't see them. This is such an amazing and creepy touch that it just makes the demeanor of the characters all the more scary. It seems like they're very much conscious and are capable of making their own decisions. When Chucky gets to your door, he does something a little different than the usual FNAF character would. Rather than just standing at the door, again, when you flash your flashlight into the doorway, Chucky is crouched down. And if it wasn't for a sound cue he made, you might actually miss that he's there. Since there's not just one state that he can be in, he'll actually hide in multiple areas in your doorway in hopes that you don't see him. Side note, as I was doing research for this game and writing the script, I learned something about the animatronics in this game. I said the characters crouch down, but that isn't exactly true. Turns out the characters perform in these small boxes that we see in our office and are never actually supposed to be able to move around. Because of this, the animatronics don't actually have legs, so no, the characters aren't crouching in the cameras, they're actually dragging themselves around in order to get to you, which actually makes the situation you're in all the more horrifying. Anyways, when Chucky appears in your doorway, you have to close what this game calls the gate. It's very similar to the normal FNAF doors, but a little different. Rather than just punching a button and having the doors close, you have to pull and hold down this lever to close the gate. But it doesn't close immediately. You're forced to sit and watch the gate slowly close, knowing that a very dangerous threat is only feet away from you. This thought alone makes an act that should be simple and thoughtless feel incredibly intense. I said that Chucky has a sound cue for when he appears at your doorway, but it's actually multiple sound cues that will play at random whenever he arrives. Now, you may be asking, what's the sound cue he makes when he leaves? Well, if this situation wasn't already butthole puckering enough, Chucky makes no sound cue letting you know he's left your doorway, and you can't flash your light when the gate is down, meaning in order to check if he's still there, you have to let go of the lever and flash your light, leaving yourself vulnerable to attack. This whole system has been designed so well, I don't really have the words to describe how much I like it. Dealing with Chucky is terrifying almost every time you have to do it, and that's saying a lot considering how often he shows up at your door. On the upside, there's no power, so you can hold down your gate and use your cameras as much as you'd like with no need to worry. Once the time hits 6 AM, the night is over, and we move on to the second gameplay loop this game has to offer, the storage segment. The storage segment is a small minigame that plays in between each night. The idea is exactly the same as the plush trap minigame from FNAF 4, allowing the player to skip 2 hours of the next night, which in this game, trust me, is very helpful, as this game did not ask for consent before it railed me in the ass. Maybe I'm just really bad at FNAF games, but this game is actually really hard. Anyways, the post-night requires you to find a certain number of items on a large shelf, while a character named Krusty the Cat stalks you from behind. Krusty will play a sound cue every now and then notifying you of his location, and you'll have to turn around and flash him with your light to make him go away. When he does, he'll play one of an assortment of sound cues. After collecting all the items, the post-night is over and the next night can begin. Before I talk about night 2 though, I want to talk about how amazing and creepy the character designs in this game are. Garten of Banban, take note. I'm not going to go through each character, but look at Chucky. Words cannot describe how disgusting he looks in a good way. He looks like he would be very damp. He's grungy and dirty, which really works well in the environment that you see him in, as the set designs in this game are actually a masterpiece. Each area gives off its own unsettling and disturbing vibes while also tying into each other very seamlessly. This is one of the few FNAF fan games where I didn't feel like the devs were trying to replicate the style of sets that the original FNAF games had. While it definitely shared similarities, I don't feel like they were trying to copy Scott's art style. I truly can't give enough praise to how much I love these designs. Getting to night 2, we're introduced to 2 new characters, Jasper Jowls and the Costume. Let's talk about Jasper first. After Jasper leaves the stage, he will wander around the cameras until he attacks you. You might notice that on night 2, a stage call switch appears on your desk. When Jasper attacks you, he will appear in front of you like the withered animatronics from FNAF 2. When he does, you hold the stage call switch, which will make Jasper go back to his stage. That doesn't sound terribly difficult, and it isn't. However, the characters in this game a lot of the time will actually wait and attack you at the same time rather than attacking you as soon as they can. As difficult as this makes the game, I love it. It really makes you feel like the animatronics are working together to try to ambush you. This game does a really good job at making you feel outnumbered, unprepared, and vulnerable. Now let's talk about the costume. The costume is, well, a fucking costume. It's the suit that Chuck E. Cheese workers walk around the pizzeria in, playing as Chucky. However, unlike the animatronics, there should be no wiring in him since he's a costume, so I've always wondered how he's moving around. Anyways, he'll appear on camera 4, and it's your job to keep a very close eye on him. The costume can't move if you're looking at him, and once he moves to another location in the building, there's no way to make him go back. Once he gets to your doorway, just like Chucky, you'll have to close the gate. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say you closed the gate to keep him out? I apologize because he won't let you. This single moment right here is the reason why I chose to make a video on this game. The actual fear I got when I first saw this while playing left a mark on me that no other FNAF game, or any horror game for that matter, ever has. The costume will never kill you. He'll just stand outside of your office and prevent you from ever being able to close the gate. The most terrifying part is he's playing with you. He knows he's stronger than the door is, so he'll let you get the gate about halfway closed before forcing it all the way open. Then he'll let you pull it halfway down again, and he'll do this forever. He will never go away. He doesn't care about your flashlight, and he doesn't care about the stage call. He's toying with you, letting you know that no matter what, Chucky is coming, and when he does, I'm not going to let you keep him out. This is the coolest thing in a FNAF game I have ever seen, and I wish more of them would do interesting and surprising things like this. I could talk about the costume all day, but let's move on to Night 3. On Night 3, we're introduced to Mr. Munch. Mr. Munch will occasionally leave his stage and appear on one of the cameras. When he does, you have only a small amount of time to figure out which camera he's on. Once you find it, he'll go back to his stage. His mechanics alone are super simple to deal with, but now we actively have a character that prevents us from looking at the costume. Since there's no power, and Chucky and Jasper both have sound cues for when they're attacking, I'd just sit on camera 4 and watch the costume until one of their sound cues played. This made it so that the costume almost never had a chance to move, but with the addition of Mr. Munch, now there's a character that actively forces me to look away and give the costume time to move around. This is such a simple mechanic that was executed beautifully. Honestly, the Radiance team is so talented, I can't wait for their future projects. Night 4 introduces Helen Henny. If the way these characters behaved didn't make you feel like they were working together to catch you already, then Helen will definitely make you think that way. Helen works almost the same way as Jasper. Once she leaves her stage, she'll move around the cameras before attacking you in your office. However, rather than standing in front of you, Helen will only appear when you're looking at the door. She almost exclusively attacks at the same time as Chucky, so after you deal with him, you turn around to find no one. This is because Helen doesn't stand in front of you when she attacks. She'll stand right on either side of your office, and since for a majority of the game, everything you need to touch is in the middle of your screen, you actually can't see Helen when she's in your office unless you go out of your way to check both sides. This is such a cool fucking mechanic. Even though she does the same thing Jasper does, she does it in such a unique and different way, it might as well be a completely different mechanic. If Radiance didn't already have enough praise from me, this right here adds even more. Night 5 introduces, in my opinion, the most disappointing character in the main game, Pasquale. He's not disappointing because of his design, quite the opposite. I think his design is actually one of the best. It's disappointing because of his mechanic. Compared to the other characters in the main game, Pasquale is pretty boring when it comes to how he plays. At some point of the night, when you lower your camera, he may twitch for 3 seconds. When he does, you have to do a stage call. If you don't do that in time, he leaves his stage for a brief moment and then jump scares you. That's it. He doesn't move around the cameras and he doesn't team up with another character. He just feels so out of place. It feels like he was just a filler character because 5 stage characters are more interesting than 4. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe people think Pasquale is the best character in this game, but to me he just seems so underwhelming compared to how interesting and unique the rest of the characters are. And there we go. That's the completed main game. Of course, there's still more to talk about, but I just want to say how amazing of an experience the main game is to play. Night 5 alone took me about half an hour to beat. It's super hard, but I think that suits the game perfectly. Never in my playthrough of the main game did I feel like I lost because of RNG. It always felt like I was just outsmarted by the animatronics, which is what I think Radiance was going for, or at least is what I hope they were going for. They did a fantastic job at crafting this game, and even with how disappointed I was with Pasquale's mechanics, I still think overall the main game is a masterpiece. Now we can start talking about the challenges in this game. Rather than going over each of them, I'm just going to talk about True Nightmare mode, this game's all 20 mode. I'll admit it here and say I myself did not beat True Nightmare, so for this segment, all gameplay you see will be from Shooter25, one of the most talented FNAF challenge runners of all time. Which is why you'll see this mouse icon on the side of the screen. It's something Shooter adds to his videos, and I think they're a really nice touch. Good job, Shooter. The fact you were able to complete this is astonishing. Let's go over each new character that is added in this mode alphabetically. The first new character is Dolly Dimples. She will appear in front of the player and sing. You have to hold down the control button to prevent her from deactivating your stage call switch. I love the idea of another character preventing you from doing something you need to do. I love how Mr. Munch prevents you from looking at the costume, and I love how the costume prevents you from closing the gate. So a character preventing you from using the stage call switch, in my opinion, is a great addition. However, I wish the way she prevents it made for a more interesting game mechanic. I totally understand there's not a whole lot of ways to add new unique mechanics in a game that doesn't have a whole lot of options, but I feel like the Radiance team could have thought of something a little bit more interesting than just another music box mechanic. However, this is a challenge mode, and for that reason, I'm not going to give this game much shit for it. Modern Chucky is another character added in the challenges. He works almost exactly the same as normal Chucky does. He'll make his way to your door and play a sound cue. Then you'll have to close the gate until he goes away. However, I actually think Modern Chucky is a lot easier to deal with than regular Chucky is. Now, I know I said I never beat True Nightmare, but I did pour about 2 hours of attempts in. First off, Modern Chucky plays a sound cue when he leaves, unlike regular Chucky, so that alone makes him a little easier. But he's always faster than regular Chucky is. You might think that would make him harder, but it really doesn't. On True Nightmare mode, his time to kill is 6 seconds, and that speeds up as you're closing the gate. Unlike regular Chucky, Modern Chucky doesn't care how far the gate is closed. He just cares if the gate is closed or closing when his kill timer ends. Which means, yes, he will leave even if the gate has only been closing for half a second. I understand why he's like this, because if he wasn't, beating him would be almost impossible, but it doesn't make sense that he'll give up even if the door is still open enough to the point where he wouldn't even have to crouch to be able to get in, but that's nitpicky. The next character is Munch Jr., and well, he's a character alright. By far my least favorite character in the whole game, simply because his mechanic, I feel, is the laziest. Munch Jr. will randomly appear in your office sometimes, and when he does, you'll have to find him and click on him. If you don't click him fast enough, the next time you lower the camera, his stupid fat ass will sit on it and prevent you from opening it again, meaning Mr. Munch will absolutely eat your ass next time he attacks, and the costume will be free to fuck with your door as much as he wants. I don't think I really have to explain why this mechanic is so underwhelming, so I won't. And finally, we have the bear. The bear will start on the other side of the gate, slumped over. He will stay there until he decides to attack. He attacks by just standing up. Surprising, considering this guy is jumbo-sized. When he stands up, you have to flash your flashlight at him until he sits his fat ass back down. Not doing so in time will result in... You want to take a guess? Want to take a wild stab? What's that? Huh? Oh yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. He fucking kills ya. Overall, another mechanic I'm not super wowed by, but again, I understand that they were adding characters to the gameplay loop from the main game, and that, in terms of adding new characters, there wasn't a whole lot of options for them, so again, not going to give them a whole lot of shit. And those are all the characters the challenges add, and yes, I do mean add. After beating the game, you actually don't have access to all these characters right away. Just like FNAF 2, there are multiple pre-made custom nights that you can play. After beating each one, you unlock one of the characters I mentioned previously, which I think is actually a really cool addition and is another example of how this fan game stands out from all the others. After beating True Nightmare mode, a cutscene plays. You're greeted to Costume, who grabs his face and takes his mask off, revealing a mirror showing what I can only imagine is Fred Andrews, the character you play as. Afterwards, it fades to black and the game ends. Overall, I think Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese's is a phenomenal fan game. The Radiance team, as far as I've seen, has never put out slop, and this is one of many prime examples of that. The main game feels so natural to play and is terrifying all the way through. You always feel like deaths are your fault, not the game's, and finally beating those tough nights will feel like an enormous weight off your shoulders and is very satisfying. The challenge modes, while borderline unfair, serve as a very interesting set of challenges that adds all new characters rather than solely making the existing ones more difficult, and I think that makes this game all the more interesting. The atmosphere the game has is one I don't think many other fan games will ever be able to achieve, and I highly recommend you go play and experience this game for yourself. Also, go subscribe to Scooter25's channel. He is such a talented challenge runner who has way more achievements under his belt than just this. Also, go subscribe to Toy Bonbon Games, as I used their gameplay for a majority of the video. What's the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made? I think there's a few answers that could really give a valid argument. Maybe you think it's One Night at Flumpty's. Maybe you think Pop Goes. Or maybe... maybe you're super wrong and think Five Nights at Candy's too. God, I f***ing hate that stupid game so much. It's so goddamn boring and repetitive. I'd rather stick my dick in a toaster than play it. But hey, that's probably a video for another day. I should mention that the title of this video says the best FNAF fan game, but what that really means is from a gameplay standpoint. How fun is it to actually play? Maybe after hearing that, your answer has changed. The game we'll be covering in this video is, in my opinion, the best FNAF fan game from a gameplay standpoint that has ever been made, The Joy of Creation Storyborn. Fun fact, Markiplier also agrees with me on this point.
I'm not even lying about this. This was amazing. This is by far the best Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made, just from a gameplay standpoint, and I'm only speaking from a gameplay standpoint.
So yeah, Markiplier and I are basically best friends. Mark, if you're watching, best friend, leave a comment that just says, "Peep." That way everyone will know that we are canonically best friends. Thanks, my boy. Before we begin, I'd like to greatly apologize for my lack of videos in the last 2, probably 3 weeks as of the time of this going up. I just got done moving to a new city and starting my new full-time job, so I have not had any free time. But I'm finally back in the groove, and I have a set work schedule that won't change, so expect uploads to be more frequent now. I plan on releasing 1 video a week on the White channel. Don't quote me on that, but I will definitely try my best to keep it up. Also, big news, we have a community Discord server now. Hooray! A while back I asked you guys in a community post if you wanted a Discord server, and the majority of you said yes. So I hunkered down and actually got one created. It probably isn't the best, but with your guys' suggestions, I'm sure we can make it a place where we all want to hang out and chat with each other. You can join using the link in the description. In the last video, I asked you all what your favorite monster from the web of cogs and oil was. My favorite comment was this one by Ads the Flareon. They chose the corpse, and while my favorite is the Trickster, I really like the thought process behind this answer. Flareon says that they're so desensitized to animatronics that the machine isn't even on the table for favorite. They go on to say how out of place the corpse feels and how that alone makes it the creepiest. Jesus, would he just get to the topic of the video already? Yap, 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 that's all this bozo does. Listen, I hear you. You don't need to be a dick. Let's get to the video. The Joy of Creation story mode is, as I'm sure you already know, not the first game in the Joy of Creation series, but let's all be honest with each other, it's easily the first one that's actually enjoyable to play. The original Joy of Creation might actually be the most boring experience of all time. It consisted of you sitting in a chair, spinning in a circle, and flashing your flashlight at everything you see for an infinite amount of time. That's right, there wasn't even a time system. Story mode, however, is absolutely amazing, so let's get into it. The game opens with a cutscene. We play as an adult named Nick Cawthon. Recognize that last name? Well, you should, and don't worry, I'll be talking about it in a bit. Nick walks up to an old house in the middle of the woods and recounts how long it's been since he's last been there, insinuating that something terrible happened inside before. We get a flashback detailing the start of what happened, and we're shifted into the point of view of a new character named Michael. Michael wakes up in a basement. We find out it is in fact not Michael's basement, and is instead Scott Cawthon's? What the fuck? Regardless, Scott asks Michael what he's doing in their house. Michael states that he doesn't know, and a child version of Nick convinces Scott and Val, who is Scott's wife, to let Michael stay the night at their house. Absolutely, positively, possibly one of the worst plays I've ever witnessed in my whole entire life. You found a guy in your basement, talked to him for 3 minutes, got a solid 0 answers from him, and allowed him to stay in your house overnight while your wife and child are inside. Absolutely brilliant. This is when we enter the first, what the game calls, memories. I can't call them nights since all of the challenges we will play through actually happen at pretty much the exact same time. For Memory 1, we are in a bedroom in a crib, where we play as Nick again, this time as a child. We wake up in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm, and Michael starts talking through Nick's baby monitor, effectively acting as the phone guy of this memory. Michael explains to Nick that there are monsters trying to get him, and explains in detail how to fend them all off, explaining that at 6 a.m., the monsters will all go away, and we're thrown into the first challenge. Unlike in most FNAF games where you slowly are introduced to each animatronic throughout the nights, adding more and more stress as it goes on, Story Mode opts to do something different. Story Mode throws essentially every animatronic on your nuts all at once. This memory has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy in it. I'll now go over all of their mechanics. Before I dive into the character mechanics, I'll start by mentioning the lamp. Behind you there is a lamp. By turning it on, you calm yourself down. Having the lamp off for too long will lead to you having intense visual and auditory hallucinations before inevitably losing the run. Now, I'll start with Chica since she's by far the easiest to deal with. Chica comes from your closet. There will be a noticeable audio cue when she opens the closet door. When she does, you'll have to turn off your lamp and wait for her to go back into the closet. Personally, I didn't know Chica swang that way, but I think it's pretty sick. Next, I'll go over Bonnie. Bonnie comes from your bedroom door. He will make a notable audio cue like Chica. He will knock on the door 3 times. When you hear this, you'll need to be quick, because you only have so long to react. When you hear the knocks, you'll have to quickly shut your lamp off and lay down in your crib. I should mention that laying down is a mechanic, and if you lay down while Chica's in your room, she'll kill you. After laying down in bed, Bonnie will slam your door open, look around, and then leave the room again, which tells you that it's safe to get back up and turn your lamp back on. Bonnie has this really weird mechanic. I'm not sure if it's a bug or if it's intended. However, a lot of the time, I'd say about 50% at least, when you hear Bonnie knock, he'll never end up coming into the room, which caused me on multiple occasions to shut the lamp off and lay down, only for the sound of Bonnie coming into the room to never play, meaning I end up laying down for way longer than I should, which pretty obviously fucks me over. Next, we'll talk about Freddy. Freddy appears at the window next to your crib. When he does, all you need to do is close the curtains to prevent him from seeing you. After a few moments, you'll hear a quiet sound cue letting you know he's left, and it's free to open your curtains again. But what if you hear Bonnie knocking or Chica coming in while you're holding off Freddy? Well, I'll tell you, you'll just get bread in the butt. So when you shart Bonnie's jizz on the toilet after being bread in the butt, we can talk about Foxy. Oh my god, Foxy. Foxy's under your bed like your weird uncle. Occasionally, you'll hear him scratching his hook on your bedpost. Well, at least, that's what Michael says that he's doing. I personally subscribe to the belief that he's scratching his hook on his big fat stupid balls. When you hear him doing this, you know that he will soon be attacking. A while after the sound cue, you will be able to see Foxy's hook on the back of your bed. When you do, you know you don't have much time left until he attacks, so quickly turn off your lamp, lay down, and close your eyes. Oh yeah, forgot to mention you can close your eyes while laying down. It's just used for Foxy, which is why I didn't say anything. Repeat this ass cycle enough times and congrats, you've beaten the first memory. Only 4 more left to go. The second memory takes place in the living room of the house. In this memory, you play as Scott's wife, Val. We start with a cutscene where Scott tells Val that he's going to make sure Nick is okay, since both of them are pretty uncomfortable with Michael staying in the house, which bodes the question, why the fuck did you even let him in? Regardless, Scott leaves and Val is left alone. This game mode is honestly probably my favorite. I personally feel it is the most terrifying out of the rest. In this memory, rather than being confined to one area like normal FNAF games, you're freely able to move around. Just like in the last memory, you have to survive until 6 AM against all 4 main animatronics. Michael tells us that we're fucked and to just hide. Thanks, Michael. Very helpful. Since Michael was no fucking help at all, allow me to explain what it is you're supposed to do on this night. Let's start with Foxy and Freddy. These two act identical to one another, each come down the hallway on one side of the living room. You can check how far away they are by turning the TV on while watching their cameras. Yeah, for some reason Foxy and Freddy have cameras mounted on their faces or something. I'm not really sure, but we don't question it. You can stall one of them at a time by holding down a button. Somehow. I don't really know, guys. I really like this memory, but this part actually makes no sense. Please bear with me. Get it? Bear. Like Freddy. Like Freddy, because Freddy's like Freddy Fazbear. Like he's a bear. Bear with me. Do you get it, guys? Guys, do you get because he's like a bear? You'll notice that Foxy and Freddy both move at the same speed. So if you don't begin stalling one of them, they will reach your room at the same time, which will mean immediate death for you. How do you keep them out? I hear you asking. Well, guess what? You don't. That's right. The animatronics in this night will literally enter the room you are in and try and find you, so you'll need to hide from them when they open the door. The way you hide from Foxy and Freddy is by hiding right next to the door that they'll be opening. The only problem with this is that when you're standing next to one door, you're right in the line of sight for the other, meaning that if you're hiding from Freddy and Foxy opens the door, he'll see you and promptly kill you. This is why stalling one of them is super important, as you'll be able to control and create a pattern at which they will come to the doors. Now let's talk about Bonnie. Along with the 2 doors that Foxy and Freddy come from, there are also double doors to the living room as well. I really have no idea why there are so many entrances to the living room. This house is a fucking maze. Bonnie doesn't have a camera, so you can't watch him directly. Instead, you'll have to walk over to the double doors and look through the keyhole to see how close he is. Once he gets close enough that you'll be able to smell the grease on his fuzzy nutsack, you just have to hide on either side of the double door and wait for Bonnie to arrive and close the door. Which brings yet another issue. When you're hiding from Bonnie, whichever side of the door you're on will leave you vulnerable to either Freddy or Foxy, so you'll really have to balance and know where Foxy and Freddy are at all times. It's the reason why I really like this memory. I really like micromanagement in games that are both hard but fair. This is why I think 1020 mode in FNAF 2 is such bullshit, because it's actually just not fair, especially Toy Bonnie. Toy Bonnie is the reason why it took me 14 hours to complete that stupid fucking mode. If you want me to make a video talking in detail about why I hate that mode specifically, let me know in the comments below. With Bonnie, Freddy, and Foxy being gone over, the only character left to talk about is Chica. Chica is easily the weakest character in this night, very similar to last night. Chica will randomly appear next to one of the windows in the living room. You'll be able to tell because she starts growling? What? She's a fucking chicken. Why would she growl? Whatever, that doesn't matter. When she does, you'll have to get up from the couch. I should have probably mentioned that when you look at the TV to check on Freddy and Foxy, you have to sit down on the couch. I didn't think it was important when I was writing that part of the script, but I just remembered while writing this part, and I'm honestly way too lazy to go back and edit that part of the video to add one sentence. So instead, I opted to add in a whole nother section just to explain why I didn't explain that part of the game before, arguably padding for runtime, even though this video would have been well over 15 minutes without it. Hopefully you enjoyed this section of Dxtr Over Explains. Anyway, when you hear Chica growling, you'll have to stand up from the couch and not move until you hear the growling stop. Once you do, you're free to move again. If you move, Chica will jump scare you, which actually doesn't kill you until the final hour. Instead, it will just send you back to the couch and you won't be able to check the cameras for a while. Chica is easily the weakest part of this memory, as previously stated. She just feels so shallow compared to the other three. I know the other three all do the exact same thing, but they do so in a way that feels interesting. They do so in unison, as even though they do the same thing, they all work together in a way that keeps up the intensity all night. Chica just feels so out of place. After 6 a.m., this memory is over and we can move on to the next one. The next memory takes place in the office where you play as Scott Cawthon himself. This memory starts with Scott going to check on Nick, but of course, we both know what Nick and Val are going through at the moment. Now it's Scott's turn. Scott sees Freddy and starts running. I'm talking haul-assin'. His house starts going batshit crazy and Scott hides in his office. He listens to a tape he left himself on how to defeat the animatronics that he made. I try to wrap my head around this section and the lore implications behind why he was leaving himself recordings, but I'm honestly too tired and way more focused on the gameplay in this game. This night is okay, I guess. It's interesting at the least, and it's very clearly just a large improvement from the first Joy of Creation game. Instead of just spinning in a circle and flashing your light when you find animatronics, you actually instead have to actively search for each animatronic. Let's start with Freddy, since he's both the easiest to deal with and the weirdest overall. Freddy can appear in any of the 4 entrances to the office: the front door, the window, the other window, and the closet. Just like the living room, this memory is free roam, so you'll move around to find the animatronics. When you find Freddy, just flash him with your flashlight and he'll leave. Something very interesting about Freddy that I should note: if left unanswered, Freddy will not kill you throughout the memory. Rather, he acts as a check for the end of it. If you reach 6 a.m. and Freddy is in one of the locations where you could find him, he'll kill you, so you have to make sure that you're really on top of him. I'll talk about Foxy next. On your desk you'll find 3 monitors with cameras. It's been so long, really starting to feel like classic FNAF now. You can look through the cameras on these monitors to find Foxy. When you do, all you have to do is look at him on said cameras. Eventually he'll have a seizure and leave. That's it, pretty simple. But of course, the characters in this game tend to like to work together to make your life more difficult. So that brings me to Bonnie. You can also find Bonnie on the cameras. However, if you see Bonnie on the cameras, make sure not to look at him directly. If you do, he'll punch the shit out of your camera and you'll no longer be able to look at it for the rest of the memory. Instead, you have to go to the location corresponding to which camera you saw him on and flash him with your light to make him go away. Now we can talk about Chica, who, unlike the last 2 memories, is actually my favorite. So there's this giant fucking hole in the wall of your office. I don't know why. You also don't know why, so we won't question it. Chica will try to fit her big fat hairy ass through it slowly, and I do mean slowly. Slow as fuck. So slow. Once she begins to wriggle and writhe in your hole, pause. Once she begins to shake on your hole, pause. Fuck. Once she begins to force herself through your hole, pause. God damn it. You know what? Once she starts to move, you have to get up and find 3 cupcakes hidden around your room. Once you do, she'll leave. These cupcakes can be hidden in drawers, behind posters, and my favorite, in the fucking garbage. Since it may take you a bit of time to find these cupcakes while working on dealing with the other animatronics, if you look at Chica, she will stop moving, giving you more time to look for the cupcakes. Congrats, you little stinker. Once you hit 6 a.m., if Freddy is gone, you're free to move on to Memory 4. Memory 4 is by far the most different and intuitive. I will say, I'm not super sure how it works, so I'm sorry if my explanation is god-awful. In fact, since I'm so nervous I'll be god-awful, I'll let my best friend Markiplier that I mentioned earlier take it away. It's totally gonna be him giving a detailed explanation of this memory, and totally not just me doing a montage edit of his playthrough of this memory with a little bit of commentary. Mark, please don't copyright this, we're best friends.
My name is Markiplier. It's time to go into the basement. Whoa.
Kids! Are any of you there? I found your note. Daddy's here. You must be really scared, but I'm here. I created you. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. How is this happening? What are you? What are you?
Ow! Ah, good. Yes, you put me in the shitty toilet. Oh, good. Thank you for that. Why is this in my basement? Oh, okay. All right, then. Am I not gonna get any information about this one? Am I just gonna be left to my own devices? There seems to be a lot of 6 on the walls here. Oh, hi! Hello? Who are you? Maybe I gotta get through the door. I'm gonna try to sneak over to the bathroom again. Why did I come in here? I didn't need to come in here. Oh! Ah! We come from the fire! I need a cupcake, I need a triangle, I need a swirkly-doo, I need a roll. I don't know what any of those are. Ah! I am in the furnace! There must be like... Oh, what the fuck? Okay, I got a hook. Oh, okay, that's in the furnace now. Well, that's good to know. Okay, no? Alright then. Yee, okay. Nope, you're still there. Okay, that's a problem. Yeah, I'm right there. Okay, got it. It's gone quiet. What? How does that make sense? You got 4 more to go, and that one took a while. Many shapes, all similar, but different. Oh, it's a code thing, isn't it? Alright. Ah, wait. Okay, the numbers coincide with the number of creatures. 9632. I'm not sure I'm too happy about this, but there we go. So, Hey! Okay! Oh boy. Oh, hi. Okay. Doop. Bee doop. Bee doop. Oh, that's not good. Yeah. Oh god, it's a code. Of course it's over there. I don't know the code for this one. Bonnie with 4. So Freddy had 3. Bonnie 4. Foxy 2. As it leaves Chica with 1, right? Oh, I see. Okay. They're colored. Okay. Chica first. Foxy second. Ooh. What? Okay. Oh. Oh, I can close it behind me. Alrighty then. Got the key. I don't know! Okay, where am I now? Oh. Pressing forward because I got nothing better to do and I have a funny feeling I'm gonna die. Okay, keep going. Okay, don't look back. I'm not gonna look back. Why would I look back? Okay, I looked back. I don't know what that did, but I did it. Ah! Ah! That's why you don't stupidly look back. All right, number 2. Oh, that was number 3. Oh, we posed, we played, we stopped, we stared, we screamed. Hi, Golden Freddy. Oh, he remains. Oh. What do I do about this? Oh, hi. What the fuck? Oh, hi. Oh my god. Okay. Holy shit, I saw that move, man. Ooh. Oh, no door! Oh, we're in no door land. I got a bad feeling about this. Oh, everything's gone. Excuse me. Hello. Oh, it's his computer. Hey! I made it! Simple tricks of the mind or something more sinister? I don't know. I don't know what that means! Bye-bye!
Wasn't that sick? Thank you, Markiplier. Truly my best friend of all time. Finally, it's time to talk about the final memory of this game, which takes place in the attic. In this memory, you play as Scott again. Michael beats your shit up and ties you to a chair in the attic. He tells you that you're gonna burn and die, because fire in Five Nights at Freddy's is like beans on toast to British people. I don't know if I'd call them people though. Gonna be real, don't really give a shit what Michael has to say. I'm much more concerned about the fire in my goddamn house. In this night, you go up against 2 endoskeletons, Golden Freddy, and The Creation. Oh my god, Creation! Like the joy of creation, that's the name of the game. Isn't that so cool? Oh, that's so fucking cool. I'm gonna scrub my nuts on a cactus. Anyway, The Creation is the coolest part of this memory, so I'll cover it last. Let's start with the poopy ass Golden Freddy. Unlike other memories, surviving isn't enough to complete it. Instead, you actively have a task to complete. In this case, you have to find Golden Freddy on your cameras 12 times and shock him. Once you do, you finish the memory. Sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? Wrong, you fucking idiot, it's actually pretty bullshit. Want to know why? Because of the creation, but I'll get to the poopy ass creation in a minute. First I have to talk about the stupid bumbling endoskeletons. So as I was double checking their mechanics, I learned that the endoskeletons are actually called the Fallen. Pretty cool, I suppose, and typing the Fallen is way easier than typing endoskeletons over and over again, so that's what I'll be calling them. In your cameras, you can switch from the house cameras to the attic cameras. It's on these attic cameras where you can see the Fallen. Inside of the attic, there are 2 large doors. Each Fallen will come from one of these doors. When you hear their enormous fat asses trampling down the hall, just make sure you close the door on the correct side of your attic to not have your ass blasted. I should also mention that Golden Freddy can appear in your office all transparent like. I don't really know what happens if he does this, as every time I saw him I quickly looked away out of habit from FNAF 2. Now we can get to Poop Dog, aka the creation. The creation will start in the basement of your house. As the memory progresses, the creation will make his way through the house and to the attic where you are. Now, I know just by looking at him, you may be thinking, God damn, that robot is really hot. And I agree. However, this is not the character you're going to want to rule 30 for you. He'll bend you like a contortionist, but we both know full well that you can't bend like that, so you'd probably just end up dying. On your cameras, you'll see these 4 markers that represent doors or barriers. As the creation moves, he will break his way through these barriers in an attempt to get to you. You can use your shock to send him back a phase in the cameras, but this brings up an issue. Your shock has a painfully slow recharge time, and if you flash the creation, then you won't be able to flash Golden Freddy to win. Finding the perfect balance between flashing these 2 is key to defeating this memory. Once you've found and flashed the 12th and final Golden Freddy, the attic memory will be completed. As far as gameplay goes, that's where the Joy of Creation story mode comes to a close. There's multiple other things along with an enormous timeline to dissect, but I'd rather die. I like talking about how the game plays, and in that case, Joy of Creation story mode is top notch. Every single memory plays completely differently, and I think this is the main reason why it's so good. With other fan games and even the originals themselves, you quickly understand what you need to do and can then begin to come up with strategies that allow you to not use certain intended parts of the game. For example, FNAF 2. In FNAF 2, there are a lot of cameras. Like, a lot. However, you only ever need to use 1. That's not very interesting when you think about it. You actually have no good reason to ever look at any of the other cameras in the game because the music box is all that matters. Same goes with FNAF 1. The only cameras you have to look at are the right corner cameras to make sure Freddy stays put, and occasionally you'll have to check on Foxy, but if you're playing correctly, you don't even have to look at Foxy in order to win. The Joy of Creation story mode switches up the gameplay loop every night. None of the nights are terribly complex, leaving out the attic, but since you have to learn something new each night, that's not something I have a problem with. I think if you were to take one of these memories from this game and turn it into a standalone game, I wouldn't like the game very much, because repeating formulas just isn't fun in any game. Don't keep repeating yourself, or if you do, make sure that it's repeated in a way that's interesting. For example, Undertale. While that whole game is based around an RPG battle mechanic, every enemy has unique and different attack patterns to learn, and just when you get bored of dodging projectiles, the game switches it up and changes the mechanics and physics of the heart you play as. It's brilliant, and so is this game. I think if more FNAF devs took inspiration for how this game plays out, overall, we would have a lot more fan games that stand out and are fresh and exciting. But let me know what you think in the comments below. When you think of the best FNAF games, what games do you think of? What are your top 5 in terms of quality alone? I'm willing to bet that a lot of people share some of the same entries, and I'm willing to bet that the game we'll be talking about today is at the top of some of your lists, because it's definitely at the top of mine. The Glitched Attraction is a FNAF fan game developed by 2 18-year-old developers alone. The reason I mention their age is because of how impressive this game really is, and how impressive it is that only 2 brand new adults managed to design it themselves. When I first learned how old these guys were, I was shocked. The Glitched Attraction is one of the best FNAF games I've ever played. I know a few of you watch my content to get suggestions for FNAF games to play, and for those of you that do not pass this one up. It is one of the most high-quality experiences of all time. Let's not waste any more time and hop into the Glitched Attraction, FNAF's most high-quality FNAF game ever made. Our game begins with us getting a text from a friend asking us to come check out the new Fazbear escape room attraction, and they tell us to bring all of our things along with us. A request that is definitely weird, but since when has weird ever meant bad in a FNAF game before, am I right? So we do just that, pack up all of our things and set out. You heard it here first. The Glitched Attraction is seriously a Five Nights at Freddy's escape room, a concept that sounded so cool I couldn't not check this game out, and I'm glad I did. We arrive at the attraction and 2 helper bots explain what's going to happen, and then we have to give over everything we have. Why the fuck did we bring everything we own if we're just going to give it to some random robots? This is pretty fishy smelling, and I should know because I haven't showered in 8 weeks. With the general rules explained, we continue onto the first section of the escape room as chipper as we can be. We're kicking our feet and heel clicking and shit, we're so giddy. Not knowing what we're getting ourselves into, we can dive into the first room of the Glitched Attraction. The first room has us in a room similar in style to the bedroom from Five Nights at Freddy's 4. This room, being the first, isn't very difficult, but let me go over the 4 threats you can find in this room. While you're trying to think, focus, and not be a fuck-up, Nightmare Balloon Boy will be sitting on a chair, because his fat ass wouldn't ever dream of helping anyone, but would instead prefer to sit there and be pointless. But sometimes, he gets a little antsy. You can tell when he's like this because he will visibly seize in his chair until you shine your flashlight at him. It's weird that doing this causes his seizure to stop though, because when I quickly shined a flashlight in my epileptic friend's eyes, he went comatose on the ground and started foaming at the mouth. But to each their own, I guess. If you don't aid in Balloon Boy's assisted suicide, he will jump off the chair and kill you. Something interesting I noted is that Balloon Boy actually makes no noise when he shakes, or even when he jumps off of his chair, leading to a majority of his jump scares feeling really awkward. I get why he doesn't make any noise, because it'd be way too easy to not lose track of him, but just something I thought I'd bring up. You'll realize there's a giant window in this room as well, which lets you see outside. Occasionally, you'll be able to see Nightmare Fredbear stalking you from between the trees. Little does he know that his eyes are actually signal beams as bright as those stupid fucking white LEDs that are now being put onto vehicles, so that when I'm driving at night, everybody's headlights look like they have their fucking brights on. So when I flash my brights at them indicating to turn theirs down, then they actually turn their brights on, which simulate what I can only imagine to be the lights of God. And then I feel like an asshole because I just flashed a guy who didn't have their brights on. Sorry to go off on a tangent like that. I just really had to get my frustration about LEDs on cars out of the way, and I really didn't have a good outlet to do so. Anyways, you'll see Fredbear slowly inch closer to your window throughout the challenge, and when he gets super close, you'll have to close the curtains until you hear him laugh, signaling to you that he's gone away, and then you can reopen the curtains. Why on earth do you not just choose to keep the curtains closed for the whole time then? I have no idea. It's not like we need the moonlight to see. The bots at the beginning gave us a fucking flashlight, but whatever, I guess. Speaking of your flashlight, little tiny stupid insignificant Freddles will periodically appear around your room. They make the same noise as they do in FNAF 4, so hearing them shouldn't be a problem, especially considering how god-awful annoying they sound. Shine your flashlight at them and bada bing bada boom, they go away. But if you let 3 stay in your room and assault your eardrums for too long, 2 of them will grab either one of your butt cheeks as the 3rd dives headfirst into your rectum, which some of you sick fucks may find pleasing, but I for one do not. The final threat you have to worry about is Night Marionette. If you somehow, by some miracle, haven't noticed in the footage I've been showing on screen so far, there is a giant hole busted into the wall of the room, which is very poorly boarded up. Why is it boarded up? I hear you asking? Oh yeah, forgot to mention, it's only because, Satan is in there with enough tentacles to make hentai for the next 9,000 years. But, putting that thought aside, Night Marionette will occasionally give a sound cue to let you know she's there. If you look at the hole, you'll be able to see those tentacles tentacles creeping out. At this point, you'll need to make a mad dash to the Golden Freddy suit, which is conveniently placed in the room with you, and hide inside of it. Once you do so for long enough, Nightmarionette will leave. Now, hold on. I'm not done talking about this stupid fucking Golden Freddy costume yet. I have some complaining to do, if you could imagine. This Golden Freddy suit takes about, 2 fucking decades to put on. I'm not kidding. You will feel like this game is broken or has paused as you are putting this fucking thing on. But if that wasn't enough, taking it off is somehow even worse. Rather than just exiting the costume, instead, the game thought it would be a great idea to have you teleport out of the costume, where you think you'd be able to continue moving around and interacting with things. But no, that'd be too convenient. Instead, once you teleport out of the costume, you have to just stand there for about 4 seconds doing absolutely nothing. No moving, no using your flashlight, just standing there like a dunce as time still passes around you. While in the Golden Freddy costume, did you happen to notice that Balloon Boy was tweaking out? Okay, cool. Nightmarionette's gone. Let's quickly exit the costume and flash Balloon Boy. Oh, wait! Instead of flashing Balloon Boy, i.e. saving your own life, let's instead stand there like we have an iron deficiency for 5 fucking minutes as Balloon Boy twerks his fat jiggly ass all over his goddamn chair. I really needed to get that out of my system. Surely I won't have to complain for the rest of the video now, right? Anyways, how do we actually beat this room's challenge? Good question. You'll notice on the wall there's a picture of Freddy broken up into pieces, with each piece facing a different direction. You can turn each piece in order to make the picture look normal again, but you'll notice that one of the pieces is missing. On the dresser, you'll see the FNAF 4 box that Scott Cawthon wiped his ass with. Of course, it has 2 locks. You can find one of the keys to the locks in a drawer on the dresser, and the other key in the drawer of your nightstand. Using both of these keys to unlock the locks on the box, bars, opens it, revealing the last piece of the Freddy puzzle. You can take that piece and put it back in place to finish the puzzle, revealing a 6-digit code. Quick tip, this number is randomized every time you play it, so no fast speed running for you, sucker. Going back to the nightstand, you can open a door to reveal a safe. You punch that 6-digit code into the safe, open it, and find a hammer. You can then use this hammer to take the nails off the wooden boards covering the closet door, then open the closet door and escape the bedroom. Do keep in mind that as you are trying to do this, you are getting fucked from all angles by about 179 different pieces of fuck. But overall, I think this is by far the easiest room to complete, which is probably how it should be given the fact that we have a lot more rooms to go through. Speaking of, let's get to the next one. The next room is much larger than the previous. This time there are only 3 threats: Toy Chica, Mangle, and the Cupcake. This room is basically a big circle. Chica will walk around the circle patrolling for you. If you get in her line of sight, she will start to chase you. If she catches you, she will throw the meanest right hook I've ever seen since Muzi. You can hide in any of the several lockers lining the walls, but be aware that not all lockers can open. And if you want to know something super awesome, which lockers open are randomized each time you play. Meaning if you lose a run, some of the lockers you hid in before probably will be locked this time. Isn't that awesome? The Cupcake will also patrol around, but he is much less important. He himself can't end your run, but if you're not watching him and accidentally step on him, he will squeak, causing Chica to be alerted to your exact location. For me personally, I hate this type of mechanics in games. I want to note, I don't think they're bad mechanics, I just don't like them. When there's a puzzle, I would like to be able to focus on the puzzle without having to worry about being chased at the same time. It also doesn't help that I don't handle being chased very well in any game, period. But it definitely doesn't help when I'm trying to focus on solving a puzzle on top of that. Just a me thing. But if that wasn't enough for my poor heart to handle, we have Mangle tacked on top of that. Mangle is hiding in the ceiling throughout the challenge. Occasionally, you will hear vent noises. When you do, that's when you know Mangle is about to drop down on yo ass. She has 2 possible drop locations. If you hear the vent noises on a side of the room that you're not on, you can safely ignore her as long as you don't then move to the side she's on. But if you hear her on a side of the room that you are on, you have 2 options. You can either A, move to the other side of the room, which might be a problem if Chica is over there, or B, hide in a locker. If you don't hide and Mangle happens to see you when she drops down, she will start to chase you. And unlike Chica, when Mangle chases you, there's no way to make her stop. At that point, even hiding in a locker won't be enough to be able to protect your cheeks. So, about the puzzle I was bitching about earlier. You'll notice a large door locked via a pin. The pin is 6 digits long and consists of 6 different symbols. Around the dark room, you'll have to find sticky notes on the walls that correlate each symbol to a number, which will give you the code order needed to unlock the door. If you couldn't have guessed, yes, this is also randomized each time you play. Simply find all the notes, type in the code, and you're done. Come on, you didn't really fall for that, did you? That was way too easy. This is a FNAF game, remember? And according to the FNAF game dev rules, difficulty equals quality. So let's make this as hard as possible. After opening up the door and flipping 4 switches to turn the power to the room on, a whole new world of fuck opens up to us, including a brand new threat, Withered Freddy. Withered Freddy sits inside of a music box, which I find weird because the marionette is literally in this room. I don't know why they didn't just use her for this mechanic, but whatever. Freddy's music box will slowly wind down, and if you don't keep it wound up, he will right hook, shatter the glass, hop out, and chase you. Just like Mango, there's no hiding. If you hide inside of a locker, Freddy will stand outside of it and wait for you to come out. And when you do, you guessed it, he eats your ass. But because the devs of this game hate their players, if you wind Freddy's music box up too much, he will also shatter the glass and then shatter your sphincter. Cool. As if this wasn't hard enough for poor old Dxtr to handle. What do we have to do now? Well, inside of the room you opened, there's some shit on the wall and we need to find some gears to make the contraption work. Again, you will just walk around the room and find all the needed gears and put them back in their place. Once you do, a door on the opposite side of the room will open, and you'll have to make a sprint of fate over to it. And then finally, the room is complete. This room isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I actually really like the concept of adding another threat halfway through. I just personally hate it for reasons stated earlier, but that's just a skill issue on my part. Moving on. Do you like complex things? Well boy, do I have a treat for you. The third room challenge is a nightmare. Let's waste no time and do a Tolarian Community College level threat assessment. This room has 4 threats: Springtrap, Dreadbear, Phantom Foxy, and Phantom Balloon Boy. Phantom Balloon Boy is simple, so let's cover him first. He works just as he does in Five Nights at Freddy's 3. He can randomly appear on any of the cameras. If you look at him on the camera for too long, he will jump scare you and cause a video error. Except the video error in this game just means that the camera he jump scared you on can never be used again for the rest of the run, which I promise you is a very bad thing, and the reason will be revealed later. Phantom Foxy can appear in any of the 2 doors connecting to your office. If you look at him for too long, he will charge at you and jump scare you, causing a level of hallucinations to appear. If too many levels of hallucinations appear at once, it's game over. Now, let's talk about the real threats of this night: Springtrap and Dreadbear. Dreadbear can be seen on the cameras and will attack either one of your doors. Do note that you can close these doors and they each have their own power supply. But Dreadbear is unaffected by the doors and will break them down if they're in his way. You'll have to watch the cameras to see which door he will be attacking, and when you see him charging towards one, you will have to hide under the desk on the opposite side of the desk to where he is coming from in order to stay out of his line of sight when he enters your office. Eventually, he will leave and you'll be safe to come back out. Springtrap is a goofy little thing, to say the least. Springtrap will climb through any of 3 vents, which you can see on the cameras. 2 vents bring him to your respective office doors, and the 3rd leads to the vent that is directly above you. If you see Springtrap climbing through a door vent, you will have to simply close the door to the side he's going towards. If you see him climbing through a vent that brings him to the top of your office, you'll need to quickly turn off the power to the office and hide under your desk. He'll drop down, and once he can't see you because the lights are off, he will leave. You got all that down? Good. Because we have a whole load more of fuck to talk about next. That being, how do we escape this room? Well, the goal is to open a tiny vent near the ground beneath the TV screen. To start, you'll want to check near the desk to look for a code. It's random every time, and where it appears next to the desk is also random every time, so have fun. Once you get the code, you head over to the TV screen and press Developer Mode, and then type in the code you found in your office. This lets you activate Developer Mode, which opens up a door on the wall revealing a token. Keep in mind, all of the threats are active at this time. Using the token, you pop that puppy into the big arcade machine in your office, which promptly starts up a game. That's right, While defending yourself from an onslaught of fuck, you will also have to play an entirely other game at the same time. The game in question, Save the Children, is really just a bunch of fetch quests. To start, you'll talk to Balloon Boy, who is fishing and says he needs some balloons. By the way, if you couldn't have guessed, all of the items that you'll be collecting in this minigame will be in a random location every time you play. Because God hates you. When you bring the balloons back to Balloon Boy, he will give you one of the fish he caught. Then you need to find Old Man Consequences and give him the fish, since the pond he's fishing in doesn't have any. Once you give him the fish, he gives you a lily pad for some fucking reason. Don't question it. We don't have time to question it because I neglected to mention there's a fire spreading through the building as you're escaping, and if you take too long, it will reach your office and kill you. No, I'm not joking. Oh, and again, keep in mind all of the threats I mentioned are still pulverizing your butthole. Once you have the lily pad, you'll take it back to Balloon Boy's pond and use it as a bridge to talk to this fucking robot thing. The robot says its watch is broken, so fuck you, go look for a clock. Once you find the clock and bring it back to the robot, he gives you a penguin, I think is what that thing is. Then you take the penguin over to Lolbit, who gives you a key to unlock a gate, which then leads you to an area where you need to unlock another gate. Yes, this minigame is still happening right now. You spelunk into a cave and talk to some dude who thinks the cave is too dark. You then have to leave the cave and go look for a torch, head all the way back and give the torch to him. He will then give you a key to unlock the other gate, and when you do, you'll exit the area, leading to a William Afton cutscene where he goes sicko mode inside of his Springlock suit. And finally, you have to sit there and wait as the game reboots. Again, we're on a time crunch, so your butthole will probably be puckered at this point. Again, threats are still up the wazoo right now, so don't get comfortable. Once the system reboots, you'll get another 5-digit code which you can use to unlock a box on the office desk, which reveals a key. You then use the key on a keyhole in the fucking wall for some reason, and at this point, no matter how much time you have left, the game will start to count down from 6. Once the fire reaches your office, the small vent I mentioned at the beginning of this room will finally open, and you'll be free to crawl through it, but not before Springtrap lunges out and grabs your ankle with lust in his eyes and shit. You quickly close the vent and decapitate that bitch, and finally, you complete the room. Holy shit, this room gave me a panic attack and made me shart my pants. Shall we begrudgingly move on to the next room? I think so. Let's keep this gravy train rolling. Do you enjoy having headaches? If you do, this next room is for you. Let's go over it together. I'll hold your hand. This room is made up of 2 hallways, 2 windows, and a bunch of screens, a small elevator, and a life-size 7-foot-tall circus baby animatronic. The goal of this room is to put baby back together, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first go over the threats this room has to offer. The first threat is Ballora. At times you will hear her music box begin to play. Depending on which side of the room you hear the music coming from, you'll need to go over to that side's hallway and press an electric shock button that will electrify the doorway, shocking Ballora and making her go away. If she gets in, I'm guessing you can figure out what happens next. Ballora is the easiest threat. What else is there? Well, the 2 other threats are Funtime Foxy and Funtime Freddy. Occasionally, you will hear a gurgling sound cue, letting you know something is wrong with either Foxy or Freddy. You will have to run over to the windows and turn on the light to their room to see where they are. Starting with Foxy, if you see him doing the thug shaker on stage, you just press his shock button, and he will go back to how he's supposed to be. Be careful though, if you shock him too many times for no reason, he'll eat your ass like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Freddy, on the other hand, is slightly different. His light button doesn't work. Similar to Sister Location, while looking at him, occasionally sparks will fly out of the wires in his room, briefly illuminating. In this small window of time, you'll be able to see where Freddy is located. He will slowly make his way towards the window, and if he gets too close, you guessed it, ass in his mouth, eating it like a cupcake. If you see Freddy getting too close for comfort, you press the tape symbol button, which will make Bon Bon tell Freddy to get the fuck back on stage. And he promptly will. Again, like Foxy, if you push the tape button too many times for no reason, it's time for the bite of 87 on your asshole. Now, back to putting Baby back together to complete the night. You'll notice that Baby is missing both arms and both legs. The first thing you'll need to do is find the Baby chip hidden on the desk somewhere and plug it into the monitor. For some reason, we don't plug it into a computer, but I guess that's not really important now, is it? Once the monitor comes on, we need to call for Baby's different pieces, starting with her arm. The general goal is to get each piece of her delivered and then fuse each of them to her body. Before I get to the fusing part of this process, let me bitch about the delivery process. So obviously, delivering the parts will take time, which isn't what we want because, as usual, we're on a timer here. And because of it, the devs thought it would be oh so funny to have some of the pieces come in broken. And once you put them on and try to fuse them, only then it will tell you it is broken and won't work. And you'll have to take the piece back off, return it, which also takes time, and then order and wait for another piece to be delivered. Why was this necessary, guys? What neuron fired off in your brain that made you think, how can I be Satan today? Anyways, let's talk about fusing, because this is really where the headache of this challenge comes into play. Starting with fusing the head, which for some reason wasn't already fused on, even though the challenge started with her head already being on her body. In order to fuse baby's body parts back to her torso, you have to complete a small minigame. For her head, it's basically just Simon Says, but with numbers instead of colors. But don't worry, the devs weren't just being nice and thinking about colorblind people. We'll get to that in just a minute. This is by far the easiest and least time-consuming part to fuse, but if you mess up a pattern once, you'll have to completely restart the head fusing process. Let's move on to her arms. The minigame for both arms are the same. The goal of this minigame is to divert power from the left side of the screen to the right. You do this by turning a bunch of 90-degree lines and 180-degree lines in order to make a consistent path from left to right. This sounds easy, but holy fucking shit, knowing you're on a time crunch and dealing with 30 pounds of dick in your ass at the same time definitely doesn't make this a smooth process. Do that for both arms and you're on to legs, the part that makes people like me want to die. In order to fuse the legs, you have to play a color matching game. You will see two grids of colors, one grid where you can change the colors and on the other you cannot. You have to copy it. Let's get the big elephant out of the room. If you're colorblind or deficient like I am, this challenge is borderline impossible. I'm lucky enough to not be completely colorblind or I would never have beaten this in my entire life. But not only that, but the grid each time has a missing square, as I'm sure you've noticed, but I'm also sure you've noticed that missing square on your side and the missing square on the side you're supposed to copy are in different locations. That's because they rotated the fucking grid. Talk about a headache, am I right? Maybe I'm just brain dead when it comes to this, but trying to comprehend where each color should go when it's rotated was just not a fun experience at all. I'm not even going to lie to you. But once you finally finish fusing all of baby's pieces back together, a voice will come over the speakers telling you that all of the animatronics have been deactivated, and that you should exit through the hall on your right. When you do, you'll be led to the sister location elevator. Getting inside, it will slowly descend and then stop. You'll hear something laughing at you for a while, and then the elevator will suddenly drop and you die. The end. Game over. Okay, not really. That's just the transition to the next room. Are you ready? Because I sure as fuck aren't. Why did we agree to come to this place? It makes no sense. How does this place even exist? I could have died a solid 276 times at this point, and we're not even done yet. Someone needs to get this place investigated by the FBI because this is some bullshit. What a waste of a Saturday, am I right? Anyways, let's move on. After laying on the floor for approximately 8 days, we finally wake up from the fallen elevator. We walk past a large window and see the characters we just went up against. After the events of the last room, these little tiny robot things apparently grabbed all of the characters to bring them to the scooping room. And this room is presumably that. While we look across the floor of once familiar corpses, the bane of my existence and the shit in my diaper emerges from the tangled mess of wires. Ennard. This guy is the single reason why it took me so long to make this video, why it took me a month to beat this game. For most, it certainly wouldn't have taken this long, but for me, oh my lord, this next room will give me flashbacks like Charlie in the Trees for the next 5 decades, and possibly until I reach my grave. Remember the second room? How I mentioned I don't handle being chased very well? This room made me question if I would be able to continue making videos on this channel, or if I would have to jump ships to another genre to make review videos about. I'm not kidding, not even a little bit. I originally intended to beat this game on stream on Dxtr Black, and you can still see my first stream about this game where I gave up on room 2. Well, for the people who tuned into that stream, know now I didn't give up. But you should also be grateful that I didn't stream this entire process because I spent tens of hours trying to beat this next room alone. Let me explain why. Room 5 is the epitome of everything I hate in a horror game. Literally all the way down to the last detail. I'll give you a warning right now. This is 100% a me problem and is totally my subjective opinion. So, the only threat in this room is Ennard. Thankfully, there aren't any more, but dear lord, Ennard is all it needs. In terms of where we are story-wise, the elevator crashing was definitely not intended to happen, as upon beginning this room, we don't get a monitor telling us what our goals are. This is cool as a passing thought, but it's not really cool when you stop to think that there is absolutely nothing to explain what it is I need to do to complete the challenge. Upon beginning, we're given a wind to power flashlight and some writing on the wall telling us to light up a solar panel using the flashlight. Now, I'm already going to pause real quick. We're being shown a new mechanic, the wind up flashlight and solar panel. Cool. Now tell me, do you suspect we need to light up solar panels ever again in this entire challenge? Or the entire game? I'm assuming you said yes, but you'd be completely wrong. No, there's not a single other solar panel in this entire game. So please, tell me, why the fuck were we shown this? Showing us the flashlight makes sense, but there were countless other ways to do it in a much better way than showing us another mechanic that is never used again. This is exactly like the gun in Muzi. But continuing, once we light the solar panel, a large door opens and the challenge truly begins. The overall goal of this challenge is probably the easiest we've seen so far. It's broken up into 5 distinct tasks. Step 1, find a crowbar. Step 2, use the crowbar to force open a drawer near Kyle's desk to get a keycard. Step 3, use Kyle's keycard to open a door, allowing you to turn a generator on that powers computer monitors throughout the room. Step 4, find all 3 computers and input 3 colored fuses into each. The fuses are conveniently placed in boxes right next to the computers, so I appreciate that. And step 5, go back to the generator and turn on the central power, which opens the door, allowing you to climb a ladder and beat the challenge. Sounds simple, right? Well, yes. It is simple, but now I need to talk about the problem. Ennard. Ennard will be patrolling the giant maze of a room the entire time you are performing these tasks. If he sees you, he will begin to chase you. If you get caught, you will lose all progress you've made throughout the challenge. Let me tell you another fact. Unlike every room in this game so far, this room ain't small. No, this room is very fucking large. I hate everything about life. Let me complain about some more stuff. If you are near Ennard, he will hear you and be alerted to you if you do the following. Wind up the flashlight. Makes sense. It's really loud. I can understand that one. If you run. Okay, yeah. I've seen that in other games before. Running is louder than walking is, and walking. That's right. If you move, period, while he is anywhere remotely close to you, he will hear you and start to chase you. What the fuck? And once he starts chasing you, there's only 2 ways to get him to stop. The devs must have been smoking crack and playing Dead by Daylight while they were designing this section, because one of the methods used to escape an Ennard chase is by knocking over wood pallets placed around the room. Quickly break the pallets and continue to chase you if you don't hop bottom out of there at light speed. What's the second way of escaping a chase? I hear you asking? Well, it's by stunning Ennard. How do you stun Ennard? I hear you asking again. That's a great question. I have no fucking idea. I'm not joking. I literally have no fucking clue on earth how, on God's green fuck, you're supposed to stun Ennard. How do I know you can stun him? Well, every time you die, which, judging by the fact it took me borderline a month to beat this challenge, I did quite frequently, you will get a tip on the loading screen. One of these tips tells you that stunning Ennard will give you more time to run away than knocking over a pallet will. So I know you can, but the game doesn't elaborate on how to do that as far as I'm aware. So to this day, I still have no idea how to stun Ennard. I don't know what the hell the game is talking about. I'm stumped. But I'm not even close to done talking about this section of the game. No. I spent a fucking month on this. I can dedicate a few pages of my script to it. You can sit down and listen. I don't care if this video ends up being an hour long. You see, there is a very large, steaming hot, glaring issue with this challenge in specific. Since it's technically not a part of the canonical attraction, there's no tip screen at the beginning. But with no tip screen, there's no telling anyone fuck about fuck. So, as I said, there are 3 computers around the level. Each computer has a box of fuses with differently colored patterns on them right next to them. Each computer requires 3 different fuses. How do you figure out which fuses go where? Well, at first I looked at the colors of the wires going into the computer. I thought, maybe this will give me a hint as to what I'm supposed to do. So I tried to grab the fuses out of the box, but I couldn't. So then I thought, oh, maybe these aren't the fuses, and the actual fuses are randomly placed around the map. So I went to look. I looked, and I looked, and I looked, but I never found any fuses. Eventually, I died for probably the 48,000th time to see a tip appear on my screen. You won't be able to pick up fuses until you turn on the monitors. You didn't think to tell me that? You didn't think that was important information to give out earlier? This is why we need the fucking tip screen, asshole. But fuck me, whatever, sure. So then I started trying to figure out how to turn the monitors on. I tried seeing if I could press the buttons on the monitors, but that didn't work, so then I decided to try and find something else to do. Eventually, I found a note next to a door mentioning that Kyle leaves a keycard in his desk to open said door. Okay, cool. Something to do has just fallen into my lap. Let's go find Kyle's desk. Luckily for me, desks are in the same location every time you play, so we don't have to worry about those being randomized. After looking for a very long time, because again, I don't handle being chased well at all, it's like I fucking lock up and start freezing. I don't know what's wrong with me, I just can't handle it. So, most of the gameplay boiled down to me moving incredibly slowly and taking way more time than I ever needed to complete this challenge. But that's how I personally had to do this if I wanted to play it myself, which is also why the footage you're watching right now isn't mine. Thank you, Kono and Indie Fuel. I eventually find Kyle's desk to then find another note from Kyle mentioning that you need a crowbar to be able to open his drawer with the keycard in it. Fuck me. So, after searching for another 100 years, I find the crowbar on a desk and use it to open the drawer to get the keycard. 400 hours and 2,000 deaths later, I use the keycard to open the door and find the generator inside. Flip the switch and boom, the computers are now on. Now, 5,000 deaths later, I finally get to the point where I can pick up the fuses and match the correct fuses to the one shown on the screen. After 25,000 deaths, I managed to correctly match the fuses of all three computers. Keep in mind, every time I die, I have to completely restart this entire process, all the way back to shining the flashlight at the solar panel. I'm on the verge of death. So finally, I make it back to the generator to turn it on and finish this godforsaken challenge. And I do, expecting the door next to it to open. It doesn't. Come in real close for me. Come in real close. This fucking door needs a separate key that spawns randomly in the level. I'm going to clench my teeth together so hard that they shatter into a fine powder. This right here is what took me the longest. So finally, after 100,000 deaths, I finally get the key to the generator to unlock the door. Come in real close again for me, real close, one more time. Take a guess what's in this room. Is it the exit to let me move on to the next challenge? No, it's just fucking lore. I didn't know this while I was playing. I don't watch videos about the games I play, so I had no idea what was behind this fucking door. I know that's 100% my fault, but dear God, when I tell you how fucking pissed I was when I finally figured out this after hours upon hours of attempts, I was fucking livid. I wish I was recording my attempts so I could show you my reaction. You wanna know what happened after a reasonable crash out in this room? Ennard fucking walked in and killed me, making me start from the beginning again. Once again, I wasn't recording. However, this exact same thing happened to Markiplier, so I'll show you footage of this happening to him instead.
Good. I was about to say, if that guy could have come in here, I would have been so mad. How could you ever get me in here?
The amount of vulgarities that emerged from my lungs at a speed of Mach 50 in that moment was astronomical. Enough to shake trees and shatter the sound barrier. I was fucking livid. But again, I know full well that this entire section, this entire 4 pages of my script is an experience that only I have had. Nobody else on Earth struggled with this challenge as much as I did. Nobody in history has ever spent a calendar month pouring attempts into this section of a game that should only take 20 minutes to complete. I know it's a skill issue, and a very hard skill issue at that, but I could not, under any circumstance, neglect to mention how bullshit of an experience I had. I hope you enjoyed this segment. I eventually found the door to the generator, opened it, and climbed up the ladder into the next challenge of this godforsaken fuck-ass game. From one anxiety attack to another, let's talk about room 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and that's how many threats we have to talk about in this level. Awesome segue, Dxtr. Thanks, Dxtr. The first threat we'll talk about is Molten Freddy. Molten Freddy can appear in one of 2 vents occasionally.
When you hear or see him in one, you'll have to break your mouse and spam click a lever in the vent to blind him with a light more powerful than the sun. Every time you flash him, he gets slightly pushed back, which leads to you spending an infuriating amount of time spamming the fucking lever to make him go away. The next threat is Scrap Baby. As I'm sure you've noticed, we're locked inside a fenced area. On the outside of the fence is a forest, and occasionally you'll be able to see Baby limping her way out from between the trees towards your fence. When she gets to the fence, she'll hop that shit like an Olympic athlete and fuck your shit up. To stop her, you must go to this random screen in the wall and activate the repel system, which plays the most ear-piercing sound I've ever heard in my entire life. So I totally understand why that makes Baby go away. The final threat is Scrap Trap, who in my opinion is the stupidest looking FNAF character ever designed. You can see Scrap Trap sitting on a chair down a long hallway. You must watch him closely as he will slowly start to move until his head is eventually in an upright position. When it is, you must use the same screen you used for Baby, but instead close the door and use the call system to lure him to you. After waiting what will feel like an eternity, you will be able to hear him stand up from the chair and sprint like Usain Bolt towards the door, and pound on it like he's on speed. Then he will go back to the chair and you can open the door and turn off the call system. By the way, the call system is also the worst sound I've ever heard in my whole life. Thank you for asking. That may not sound all bad, but having to deal with all three of these fuckers and do the other bullshit we have to do, I promise it will become difficult to manage. So what is it we have to do? Well, the goal is to remove the chains from a fence gate so that we can open it. Simple enough. To start, you'll notice another screen different from the one used to defend yourself. On it, you'll find the opening minigame from Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator. You will need to complete 4 levels of this game, which in and of itself isn't a hard challenge, but when the music is pretty loud, listening for the other characters can be a problem, especially when Scrap Trap doesn't make any noise until it's already too late. After beating this game, you will unlock a prize that we can't access at this moment, so we'll get back to it in a second. Afterwards, you'll need to look around your surroundings to find 2 pieces of paper with a number ranging from 1 to 3 on them, accompanied by a silhouette of a FNAF character. You can use these pieces of paper to input a code into this little toy thing. I don't know what this thing is if I'm being honest. You only need 2 pieces of the code because you can just brute force the last one. After getting the code correct, a key will emerge. Take that key and run down the hall and unlock a door to the right of Scrap Trap. This is personally where I think this level gets specifically hard, since we'll be spending most of our time in here now, meaning we won't be able to hear Scrap Trap and Molten Freddy. So if you forget to check on them, it's basically GG's. Inside this new room, we can finally obtain the prize we got from beating the Pizzeria Simulator minigame, a Faz coin. You'll notice a projector that's projecting a cut-up piece of paper on the wall. If you pull a lever on the same wall, this tiny little Freddy I can't remember the name of will try to read the projection. But he obviously won't be able to do so because it's only a small piece of a paper, you fucking idiot. Using the Faz coin, you can go back into Scrap Trap's room and insert it into Rockstar Freddy's stomach, and then press 3 buttons on his body in an order listed on a piece of paper. This makes sense, by the way. This will cause his mouth to open, revealing the other pieces of paper you need. Slap those bitches on the projector and put them together like a puzzle, which, side note, is a pain in the ass for no reason. The controls are super janky. Slap the lever with your big Coke can penis, and have bitch Freddy read it. When he does, a door next to Rockstar Freddy will open with some bolt cutters inside. You can use these bolt cutters to cut the chains off of the fence and escape this level. This level might not seem as difficult as some of the other ones have, and while none of these levels are particularly difficult in terms of what you literally have to do, all of the levels, and this one specifically, build up so much stress and really test your nerve control. After jumping down some weird looking cellar door, we enter a new room with a computer in it. It shows an error that it detected human movement. Obviously, we just entered the room, of course. While reading through the files on the computer that detail a plan to revive someone through our corpse. Another human detection error shows up on screen. Knowing that we haven't moved, we turn around and get our shit smacked up by Vanny and get knocked out. Fun fact, you can actually spot Vanny spying on you in almost every other level in the game if you're looking closely enough. Just something cool I thought I'd bring up. We wake up to Vanny dragging us into an unknown room. And rather than me explaining what happens next, I'd rather just show you. you. Afterwards, we walk through what appears to be memories of the Bite of 87 events, and the game comes to a close. So, from a lore perspective, we were lured to this attraction by Vanny. You may remember at the beginning of the game we got a text from a friend telling us how cool this attraction is, and in the secret lore room, which turns out to be Vanny's secret room, she has a whiteboard full of steps on how to use remnants. One of the steps involves sending a message to someone, seemingly to lure them in, and what do you know, we got a message to come here. Also in that secret room is a tape that can be watched going over how to extract remnant from people. So what the goal seemingly was, using my enormous brain of theorization, the plan was to lure us to the attraction, extract remnant from us in order to give power to William Afton, which is what we are seeing happen in the final cutscene. Case closed. I'm a genius. But as far as I'm aware, that's all the glitched attraction has to offer. Although this game put me through 4 brain aneurysms and a heart attack, I still think it is one of the most impressive FNAF fan games ever made. The amount of detail, skill, and effort put into this is only matched by the other kings of FNAF games, and that cannot go overlooked. I highly suggest you give this game a try, even if you think it's too hard. I don't think you'll regret it. I just really hope they add in a feature to get rid of the nauseating head bobbing, because holy shit, I almost threw up multiple times playing this. In the last video, I asked you all what was the funniest experience you've ever had playing a FNAF game. And my favorite comment was this one by Saf the Dark Angel. Needless to say, we love irony here on the Dxtr White channel. We're all too familiar with it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya!